Chapter 2980. Little Qing hadn't expected Xiao Chen to take the initiative to apologize, so she didn't know what to do for a moment. After what had happened last time, both Xiao Chen and Little Qing seemed to understand how to get along with each other better. Little Qing clearly didn't want to retreat, but she still considered Xiao Chen for the first time. She also knew that Xiao Chen was forced into a corner. Therefore, although she was very depressed, she didn't blame Xiao Chen too much. Xiao Chen also knew that Little Qing was unwilling, so he took the initiative to apologize. After what had happened last time, the two of them were more like friends now. They knew how to think for each other. Little Qing was still a little embarrassed. Little Qing blushed a little, but she still spoke proudly. "Since it's already like this, there's nothing we can do. We'll go first. He, Ancestor He, stay behind to take care of everyone. The rest of you, go to the land of living beings first." Perhaps because she was embarrassed, Little Qing quickly changed the topic and suggested that everyone should go first. After all, although the spatial spirit boat wasn't fast, it was far slower than Xiao Chen's group. With the spatial spirit boat's speed, it would take at least 7 or 8 days to reach the land of living beings. However, if Xiao Chen's group rushed at full speed, they could reach the land of living beings in 1 day. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and didn't refuse. After all, time was indeed tight. According to Little Qing, He and Ancestor He would stay behind to take care of the army, while Xiao Chen's group rushed back to the land of living beings first. They split into 2 groups. Xiao Chen and the others dove right into the void. They quickly made their way to the land of all living beings under the power of the spatial laws. While Xiao Chen's group was rushing to the land of living beings, the battle between Qin Shure's group had reached its climax. Although they had killed many of the origin world's new cultivators, the land of living beings still suffered heavy losses. Faced with the current situation, Xiao Yao took the initiative to come to Qin Shure's side while killing the enemies. "Mom, we can't go on like this. We're still at a disadvantage in terms of numbers." Carefree's meaning was obvious. They had to send warriors with lower cultivation bases. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to stop the attack of the origin world. Qin Shure's expression was icy cold. His cold gaze swept across the entire battlefield. Xiao Yao was right. They were at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers. However, once the cultivators with lower cultivation were to fill in, the number of casualties would only increase. However, there was no other way. No matter what, they had to hold on until Xiao Chen and the others came back. Seeing that Qin Shure was still hesitating, Xiao Yao said helplessly, "Mother, there's nothing we can do about it. We just have to wait for Father and the others to come back." Knowing what Qin Shure was hesitating about, Qin Shure's expression darkened when he heard Xiao Yao's words. He immediately made a decision. Soon, more cultivators were drawn out from the land of creation. However, these cultivators' cultivations were slightly lower. With the increase in numbers, the pressure was indeed reduced. However, it was just as Qin Shure had expected. The addition of these low-level cultivators temporarily relieved the pressure. However, the number of casualties increased exponentially. After all, it was very difficult for these low-level cultivators to protect their own lives in a battle of such scale and level. They were more like cannon fodder standing on the battlefield. They could be killed at any time. Qin Shure was also very depressed as the number of casualties increased. However, there was nothing he could do. On the other hand, Xiao Yao showed her calm side at this time. She began to make all kinds of arrangements while killing the enemies. Under Xiao Yao's arrangements, the number of casualties was reduced to a certain extent. This was already very difficult. Qin Shure's eyes flashed with gratification when he saw Xiao Yao's calm command in the face of danger. The 2 brothers, Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao, did not let Xiao Chen down. One of them was as calm as a general, commanding and controlling the overall situation. The other was more like a match for 10,000 enemies. In contrast to Xiao Yao's calm and collected composure, Xiao Lao was brave and fierce on the battlefield. He gave people a feeling that he was unstoppable. Xiao Lao killed all the way until now. He was definitely the number one in terms of the number of enemies killed. The two brothers had very different personalities. However, they both performed extremely well. Of course, Lin Feng, Lin Shui, Dong Fonglin, and the other second-generation descendants were not to be outdone. The battle continued. With everyone's concerted efforts, a day passed quickly. Just as everyone was engaged in a bloody battle, several spatial gates appeared in the sky. These spatial gates were different from tearing space. Instead, they were passageways opened up by spatial laws. They could explode with even greater speed. Xiao Yao noticed the appearance of the spatial gates immediately. She could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. We finally made it in time. Needless to say, these spatial gates were definitely the result of Xiao Chen and the others rushing back. As expected, Xiao Chen and the others soon stepped out of the spatial gates. After Xiao Chen and the others joined the battle, the situation instantly reversed. Without the obstruction of the primogenitors, these new cultivators were simply cut down like vegetables. The situation on the battlefield quickly turned one-sided. The crisis was instantly resolved with the appearance of Xiao Chen and the others. At the same time, when Xiao Chen and the others finally caught up, on the other side, in the origin world, the primogenitors were busy reviving the new cultivators who had died in battle. Their souls were constantly flying into the cauldron of heaven and earth. These people were all people who had died in battle in the land of all living beings. On the other side, Qing Zhu and Ancestor Bai were planning something else. The two of them stood in front of a water mirror. In the mirror, a group of cultivators with sorrowful expressions could be seen. Is it really possible? Of course. Haven't you heard of the methods of our origin world? Oh, my poor son. The people in the mirror kept crying and complaining. Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Bai responded calmly. It wasn't difficult to tell from their conversation that they seemed to be making some sort of deal. On the other side of the water mirror was the land of all living beings. These cultivators with sorrowful expressions were actually cultivators from the land of all living beings or the masters of some family or sect. Of course, their cultivation bases weren't strong. However, these people were actually in contact with the primogenitors. This was probably something that Xiao Chen and the others hadn't expected. After a round of discussion and obtaining Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Bai's assurance, everyone thanked them profusely. Then, the water mirror returned to normal. When everything was over, Ancestor Qing revealed a faint smile. Looks like it went smoothly. Who in this world can resist the temptation of coming back from the dead? As parents, who wouldn't want to save their own son if they had the chance? This is our chance. Chaos will give us enough time. That's right. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2981. Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Bai were actually in contact with the cultivators in the land of all living beings. This was definitely something that Xiao Chen and the others had not expected. Moreover, from the looks of those people, it seemed like they had something to ask of Ancestor Qing and the others. It was already the final moment. In order to win, the primogenitors did not care about any means. As long as they could obtain the final victory, the primogenitors were willing to try anything. They did not know what the primogenitors were doing. Outside the land of all living beings, Xiao Chen and the others attacked, and the battle quickly ended. There were no experts guarding the land of all living beings. Facing the arrival of Xiao Chen and the others, the origin world naturally had no power to fight back. Many new cultivators of the origin world were slaughtered. It seemed like a great victory, but Xiao Chen and the others did not look happy at all. Because killing these new cultivators of the origin world had no effect on the origin world at all. After killing them, it would not take long for these people to be resurrected. Therefore, fundamentally speaking, this was not a victory at all. Their faces were calm, and no one could tell whether they were happy or angry. After the battle ended, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others took the initiative to come to Xiao Chen's side. "Father," Xiao Yao called out. "Yes, let's hurry up and count the casualties of this battle." "Got it." As Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao grew up, the two of them were capable of handling many things. Xiao Chen did not hesitate to hand over such trivial matters to Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others. "Feng you guys go and help too." In response, Lin Yun also said to Lin Feng and Lin Shui. The cleanup was directly handed over to Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others. With the halo of their fathers, they gradually began to show their abilities. The group quickly returned to their residence. Xiao Chen and the others were not in a good mood after failing to achieve anything in their attack on the origin world. It could not be helped. They had originally thought that the battle was in the bag, but in the end it ended in such a way. No one would feel good if they were in the same situation. The origin world's tricks are endless, and they have no bottom line now, Mu Lingxian said helplessly after everyone sat down. No one had expected the appearance of Armageddon. Moreover, Armageddon's strength was indeed not to be underestimated. Little Qing should know this the best. Little Qing, as a spirit of heaven and earth, was unable to deal with Armageddon. To be able to create such a monster, one could see the desire of the primogenitors for victory and how unscrupulous they were. Now that they knew about the existence of the apocalypse, they had to make the appropriate preparations. If they were to fight again, Xiao Chun and the others would definitely be stopped by the ancestors, and little Qing would have to deal with the destroyer world on her own. It could be said that Xiao Chen's side did not have much of an advantage. The only advantage they had was the number of ancient-era living beings. Beast slave, stone pine, wood spirit, old tree, and so on. Xiao Chen's side had an obvious advantage in terms of numbers. After all, the origin world only had Hu Huang, Chun Yen, and the other two primogenitors. Therefore, the primogenitors should be the key to this battle. It seems like I have to tell Beast Slave and the others that the next battle must be decided in the shortest time possible and then join forces to deal with the primogenitors. As long as Beast Slave and the others could pin down the primogenitors, even if it was just one, Xiao Chun and the others would be free. At that time, they would be able to help little Qing. That way, they would be able to expand their advantage. Everyone agreed with Xiao Chen's plan. Moreover, it seemed like it was the only feasible method. While Xiao Chun and the others were discussing the next battle, in the dozens of forces in the Land of Life, the leaders of these forces had gathered the upper echelons of their respective sections. Everyone's expression was solemn. Among them was a large family called the Wang family. This family had moved to the Land of Life with Xiao Chen and the others from the beginning. In the past half a year, they had developed quite well. Although they couldn't be considered one of the top forces in the Land of Life, they could be considered a hero. However, the Wang family patriarch and the various elders had gathered together. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the Wang family patriarch who sat on the main seat. Someone asked nervously, "Patriarch, are we really going to do this? Once things get out of hand, the divine ancestors' fury isn't something we can endure." The Wang family patriarch's expression was complicated. After a moment of silence, he sighed helplessly. "How could I not know this? However, I only had one son in my life. Now that he's dead, what can I do? Only the origin world can help me revive my son." The Wang family patriarch was one of the people who had contacted the green ancestor and the white ancestor. The reason he had contacted the origin world was because the origin world had taken the initiative to contact him. Before the Land of Life had been established, the Wang family patriarch's only son had died in the chaos of war. He had only had one son in his life, so he had been devastated by his son's death. However, who would have thought that the origin world would contact him one day through a secret technique? The Wang family patriarch was furious when he first met the Green Ancestor. However, when the Green Ancestor said that he could revive his son, the Wang family patriarch was stunned. The Wang family patriarch felt as if he had been struck by lightning when his son could be revived. Moreover, the Green Ancestor could do all this without the Wang family needing to do anything for the origin world. In other words, the Green Ancestor or the origin world could revive the Wang family patriarch's son for free. Faced with such a temptation, the Wang family head had no ability to resist at all and quickly agreed. Perhaps in the Wang family patriarch's opinion, he wasn't betraying the land of life because he hadn't promised the origin world anything. However, he didn't think about the current relationship between the land of life and the origin world. They were definitely enemies. The origin world's method of reviving the Wang family patriarch's son was very simple. They just had to remove his emotions and desires and turn him into a so-called new cultivator. That way he could be revived. However, would Xiao Chun and the others allow new cultivators to exist in the land of life? Moreover, once the Wang family patriarch's only son became a new cultivator, he would only listen to the orders of the primogenitors. At that time, would the Wang family still be the Wang family? In other words, was the Wang clan an enemy of the land of all beings? At that time, the Wang family patriarch would probably not be able to make the decision by himself. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2982. In terms of scheming, the Wang family patriarch was no match for the primogenitors. These old monsters who had lived for God knows how many years were extremely scheming. Ordinary people simply couldn't compare to them. On the surface, the Wang family patriarch seemed to have gained the upper hand in this matter, but what was the truth? He had been tricked by the primogenitors. Now that the Wang family had agreed to the primogenitor's request, it would probably cause a storm in the land of living beings. After all, this was no small matter. The Wang family patriarch didn't care about the nervousness of the Wang family elders. In order to revive his son, the Wang family patriarch stood his ground. Very soon, a formation was set up in the Wang family's secret realm. This formation was used by the primogenitors to revive his son. But in reality, this formation didn't have only one function. It also served as a teleportation formation. A teleportation formation had been built in the land of all life without anyone noticing. What kind of concept was this? The patriarch of the Wang family probably hadn't even realized it yet. Moreover, in the entire origin world, there were many forces that had been bewitched like the Wang family. They had agreed because they had lost their loved ones and couldn't resist the temptation of the primogenitors. And now, just like the Wang family, they were setting up teleportation formations in their own territories. In the origin world, people like the Wang family patriarch were excitedly waiting for their loved ones to come back to life after setting up the teleportation formations. Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Bai were in charge of this matter, and they saw that it was progressing very smoothly. Ancestor Qing smiled confidently. If this succeeds, it'll probably be enough to give Xiao Chen and the others a headache for a while. Yes, it can indeed delay for a while. However, Ancestor Mu and the others have to speed up. After all, they can't delay for too long. The primogenitors naturally knew that it was impossible to defeat Xiao Chen and the others with just these little tricks. These little tricks were nothing more than delaying for time. Moreover, they wouldn't be able to delay for too long. At most, it would take a few years, and that was taking into account all the possibilities. However, Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu would only need some time. Everything else aside, it would be considered a success if they could delay for more than a year. How many formations have been completed? 389. More than 300 teleportation arrays had quietly taken shape in the land of living beings. Such a number was simply breathtaking. Green Ancestor nodded in satisfaction. These 300-plus formations were now hidden in the dark. Once it erupted, Xiao Chen would definitely deal with it first. He wanted to find the more than 300 hidden teleportation arrays in the land of creation. This was not an easy task, and it took a lot of time. This had nothing to do with strength. With so many teleportation arrays, Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu believed that they should be able to stall Shao Chen for more than a year. Then let's begin. Without thinking too much, Ancestor Qing and Ancestor White began to act. As for resurrecting those people, it was not a big deal for them. Not to mention reviving once, even reviving 100 times wouldn't be difficult at all. However, would he still be the same person after his resurrection? The Wang family head and the others might not have realized this problem. After coming back from the dead, he might no longer be the same person he was when he was alive. It was just a shell of the same skin. Time passed day by day. On this day, the Wang family head's only son really came back from the dead in the Wang family's teleportation array. However, at this moment, he had become a puppet without any emotions or desires. However, the Wang family head didn't care about this at all. He was extremely excited to see his son again. Without thinking too much, he went up and hugged his son, crying tears of joy. Scenes like this played out one after another in the land of living beings. Those who saw their loved ones again didn't care about other details at all. As long as they could see the person they wanted to see again and hug him, perhaps their wish would be fulfilled. However, with such joy, these people didn't know that they had completely fallen into the trap set by Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Bai. This was the ability of the primogenitors. They were especially proficient in controlling people's hearts. They knew what the people in this world wanted. At the same time, they also understood why these people were pedantic and stupid. Half a month passed. During this time, Shao Chen and the others were completely prepared. They planned to attack the origin world again. For the second attack, Shao Chen and the others were even more well prepared. They thought of all kinds of possibilities. Of course, the most troublesome one was still the World Destroyer. It would be difficult to deal with the origin world if they didn't deal with him. However, they had thought of a way and it was indeed feasible. The only thing left was to put it into action. However, Shao Chen and the others didn't expect that just as they were about to set off and attack the origin world again, a piece of bad news came from the land of living beings. Shao Chen, Lin Yun, and the others' faces darkened when they heard the news. This was because the news said that traces of a new cultivator had appeared in the land of living beings. What kind of joke was this? How could a new cultivator appear in the land of living beings? Shao Chen and the others' faces instantly turned gloomy when they heard the news. In the main hall, Shao Chen looked at Mu Lingxian and asked, "Is the news confirmed?" "Yes, and that new cultivator has been captured." There's no doubt that it's a new cultivator. It was really a new cultivator. Shao Chen and the others' faces darkened. Lin Yun's face was even colder. What's going on? Why would a new cultivator appear in the land of living beings? We don't know for now. We must investigate this matter thoroughly. Okay. They must get to the bottom of this matter. However, Little Qing had a different opinion about this. It's just a new cultivator. Isn't this making a big fuss over nothing? Just kill him. Little Qing believed that a new cultivator wasn't enough to make such a big fuss. The most important thing now was to deal with the origin world. Seeing this, Shao Chen sighed helplessly. I'm not worried about the new cultivator. I'm not afraid of 1, 10,000, or even 1,000,000 new cultivators. What I'm really worried about is how this new cultivator appeared in the land of living beings. You have to know that for the past half a month, we've been taking turns to be on guard. Even the primogenitors can't enter the land of living beings silently. Now that a new cultivator has appeared, where did he come from? This is the most important thing, and also the thing I'm most worried about. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2983. Just a few new cultivators weren't enough to make Shao Chen nervous because they weren't a threat to the land of all living beings. What really made Xiao Chen nervous was how these new cultivators had appeared. If they could appear in the land of all living beings without anyone noticing, then they must have some method that he didn't know about. If they had such a method to send new cultivators into the land of all living beings, then would the primogenitors be able to use the same method to enter the land of all living beings without anyone noticing next time? A few new cultivators weren't important, but if the primogenitors were to enter the land of all living beings, then it would definitely be a big problem. Whether Xiao Chun and the others could stop the primogenitors or not, once the battle broke out in the land of all living beings, it would definitely be the land of all living beings that would be harmed. With the strength of Xiao Chen's group and the primogenitors, once the battle broke out in the land of all living beings, it was very likely that the entire land of all living beings would be destroyed. There was no doubt about that. The battle between them would definitely have such destructive power. They had to find out how these new cultivators had appeared here. Otherwise, it would definitely be a big hidden danger. Moreover, if they didn't do anything, what would they do if the primogenitors entered the land of all living beings through this method when they attacked the origin world? Xiao Chun told Little Qing about his worries. Little Qing didn't continue to object after hearing what Xiao Chun said. Xiao Chen's worries weren't unreasonable. It seemed like a small matter, but the hidden danger couldn't be ignored. Then let's find out. We can't lower our guard right now, said Little Qing. Hearing that, Xiao Chun nodded and immediately arranged for Li Tian, Xianyuan Ling, Xiao Yao, and Xiao Lao to investigate this matter. Xiao Chun and the others reacted very quickly. The news of new cultivators appearing in the land of all living beings quickly spread. At this moment, all the major forces in the land of all living beings had heard about this matter, and everyone felt anxious. On one hand, they were afraid that the origin world would attack, and the flames of war would spread to the entire land of living beings. On the other hand, they were afraid of the wrath of Xiao Chun. In the land of all living beings, Little Qing and the other primogenitors wouldn't make the saints cower in fear. Only Xiao Chun and the others would do so. Although everything was given to them by Xiao Chun and the other divine ancestors, everything in the land of all living beings was controlled by Xiao Chun and the other divine ancestors. Everyone knew how much the sacred ancestors hated the origin world. Now, a new cultivator had appeared in the land of all beings. The simplest explanation was that someone had secretly created a tradition in the origin world. That was how the new warriors of the origin world could enter the land of living beings. Otherwise, how could they explain their imagination? No one would believe that no one had joined forces with the origin world because it was simply impossible. How could the origin world break the defense of the entire land of living beings without making a sound? Li Tian, Xianyuan Ling, and the others thought the same. Therefore, after receiving Xiao Chen's order, they immediately set off and rushed to the area where the new warriors had appeared. The investigation was left to Xianyuan Ling, Li Tian, and the others. When faced with such a situation, Li Tian and the others were obviously much better than Xiao Chen and the others. After all, this kind of situation couldn't be solved by relying on strength alone. Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling were more suitable. Moreover, Xiao Chen had specially requested to bring along Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, Xiao Luan, Lin Feng, and the other second-generation descendants. It could be considered as giving them a chance to train. Lin Yun and the others were very much in favor of this. After all, as they grew older, Xiao Chun and the others wanted to train Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the other second-generation descendants. After all, they would have to grow up and take charge of their own affairs in the future. It was impossible for them to always live under the protection of their parents. Xiao Yao and Lin Feng followed Xianyuan Ling and Li Tian on the way from the sacred palace. "Uncle, is this really the method of the origin world?" Xiao Yao, Lin Feng, and the others were very excited to be entrusted with such a heavy responsibility for the first time. In contrast, Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling were very calm. They had experienced such things too many times, so they wouldn't be too excited anymore. At this time, hearing Xiao Yao's question, Xianyuan Ling smiled slightly. Most likely, but things may not be that simple. This time, you have to watch and learn more. Compared to Xiao Lao, Xianyuan Ling obviously liked Xiao Yao more. Xiao Yao was more calm and liked to use her brain when she encountered problems. Although her cultivation talent was not as good as Xiao Lao's, her personality was more compatible with Xianyuan Ling. She could control the overall situation and was more mature and steady than her peers. This was Xianyuan Ling's evaluation of Xiao Yao. Hearing Xianyuan Ling's words, Xiao Yao nodded, and Lin Feng on the side continued. Then, if the truth is found out, will there be a great purge of the land of all living things? Everyone guessed that this matter was likely a collaboration between the inside and the outside. Some forces in the land of all living things secretly communicated with the origin world. But if that was really the case, they would definitely be punished. But when the time came, how many people would suffer because of this matter? It was not easy for the land of all living things to stabilize. If there was too much killing, it was obviously not what everyone wanted to see. Lin Feng was a little worried that this matter would spread too much, and it would be difficult to clean up when the time came. Regarding this, Li Tian smiled and shook his head, but didn't say anything. How much the matter would spread, or how the matter would develop, was not something they could control. Because Xiao Qin and Lin Yun's request was very simple. No matter who it was, as long as they found out that they were in cahoots with the origin world, they would be directly eliminated. This was not cruel, but a necessary method. For things like this that crossed the bottom line, they had to be ruthless. Having lived for so many years, Li Tian also understood the principle of this. Moreover, these old fellows had long passed the age of bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying mankind. They did indeed want the land of all living things to be stable and peaceful for 10,000 years, but it was precisely because of this. Some black sheep had to be eliminated, and they couldn't have the slightest bit of sympathy. A rat's droppings spoiled a pot of soup. Li Tian and the others had experienced a lot, so when faced with such a situation, they couldn't be soft-hearted. No matter what the reason was, they couldn't let such a black sheep exist. He glanced at Lin Feng. Lin Feng had a kind heart, but he was still a little immature. Many things couldn't be solved by being soft-hearted. Li Tian was very clear that if Lin Feng wanted to reach the level of his father, Lin Yun, he still had a long way to go. Fortunately, these old guys didn't say that they didn't have time. Everything could be done slowly. There was no need to rush at the moment. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2984. Xiao Yao, Lin Feng, Xiao Lao, and Lin Shui were already outstanding enough. At least among those of the same generation, whether it was in terms of state of mind, cultivation, or battle strength, they were all at the top level. But this was not enough because their fathers were all people who stood at the top of the world. They were existences comparable to the ancestors and the spirits of heaven and earth. If they wanted to catch up to their fathers' footsteps, they were still far from it. There were many things that they still needed to learn, just like Xiao Qun, Lin Yun, and the others in the past. Only by experiencing continuous setbacks could they finally stand at the top of the mountain and look down on all living beings. However, compared to their fathers, these little guys were much luckier and their paths were much smoother. At least they did not have to rely on themselves like their fathers and walk step by step. Their fathers, Xiao Qun and Lin Yun, would arrange everything for them. At least they would clear most of the obstacles for them. A day later, the group arrived at Lu City where the new warrior had appeared. At this time, the new warrior who had appeared previously was imprisoned in Lu City. This was also the first stop for Xianyuan Ling, Li Tian, and the others. The people in charge of Lu City were a large family called the Li family. They were the absolute overlords of Lu City. But at this time, The Li family patriarch and the elders were standing respectfully in the courtyard. They were waiting for Xianyuan Ling and the others to arrive. A day ago, a battle had suddenly broken out in Lu City. It was originally thought to be a very ordinary battle. Although the rules of the city forbade fighting, such an incident could not have reached the ears of the Divine Temple. When they first received the news, the Li family did not pay much attention to it. They only sent people to capture the new warrior. After all, he had violated the rules of the city and had to be punished. Such things had happened before. But who would have thought that it would be a simple matter? Who would have thought that as time passed, it would implicate a new warrior? The people sent by the Li family to capture the new warrior did not manage to catch him. Instead, he escaped. The matter of the new warrior changed the mood of the matter. The Li family was not stupid. They immediately reported the news to the Divine Temple. In the land of all living beings, any force with some status would have the means to contact the temple. Of course, they were unable to contact Xiao Qin and the others directly. They could only contact the people at the bottom of the hierarchy. The matter had escalated to a whole new level. The entire Li family was in fear and trepidation, not knowing how Temple would handle this. At that time, what if the Divine Temple suspected that this was related to the Li family? He felt uneasy, but there was nothing he could do. He could only pray that the truth would come to light and that the Li family would not be implicated. Just like that, the Li family waited anxiously for the experts of the Divine Temple to appear. As the group waited, Xianyuan Ling, Li Tian, and the others quickly arrived at Lu City and landed in the Li family's main courtyard. "Greetings, emissary." This time, Xianyuan Ling and the others had appeared as the temple emissaries. Seeing this, everyone from the Li family bowed respectfully under the leadership of the patriarch. Normally, the people of the temple wouldn't travel in the land of beings. They were already detached from worldly affairs and wouldn't compete with the major powers in the land of beings. In the past, it was very difficult to meet the people of the Divine Temple, but every time the temple emissaries appeared, it meant that the matter was serious. Xianyuan Ling spoke first as he calmly swept his gaze across the Li family. "Patriarch Li, stay. The rest of you may disperse, but you are not allowed to leave the Li family." The Li family naturally didn't dare to have any objections. At the same time, the Li family's defenses were handed over to Xianyuan Ling and the others. This time, Xianyuan Ling and the others brought over hundreds of temple martial artists. These people were the subordinates of Xiao Qin, Lin Yun, and the others. Every one of them was loyal. After the land of beings was established, they had no intention of leaving and joined the Divine Temple. They became members of various levels of the Divine Temple. To put it bluntly, the Divine Temple was formed by combining the forces of Xiao Qin and the others. It was a classic example of a colossus. It was also because of this that the Divine Temple had the ability to control this enormous land of beings. The Li family was sealed off, and Xianyuan Ling and the others quickly entered the main hall under the leadership of the Li family's patriarch. In the main hall, Xianyuan Ling and Li Tian sat on the main seats, while the Li family's patriarch stood respectfully below. "Tell me what happened. Don't leave out anything." "Yes." Not daring to hide anything, the Li family's patriarch directly told the whole story. The two parties that fought that day, the new martial artist couldn't be captured, and until now, they hadn't been able to find out his identity. However, the other party that fought with him was captured by the Li family. After investigation, this person was an elder of the Emerald Cloud sect. The Emerald Cloud sect was considered a large sect in this area. If it was any other time, the Li family would definitely not dare to offend the Emerald Cloud sect, let alone capture an elder of the Emerald Cloud sect. However, this was no small matter, so the Li family didn't hesitate to capture this elder of the Emerald Cloud sect. He was still imprisoned in the Li family's dungeon. As for the Emerald Cloud sect, they naturally knew about this matter. Moreover, they understood the seriousness of this matter. Therefore, not only did the Emerald Cloud sect not vent their anger on the Li family, but they also specially sent people to express their willingness to fully cooperate with the Li family's investigation. At this time, an elder of the Emerald Cloud sect was implicated, and the Holy Temple was alarmed. No matter how strong the Emerald Cloud sect was, they wouldn't dare to appear at this time. After listening to the Li family's patriarch, Li Tian whispered softly, "The Emerald Cloud sect? Take me to the dungeon." Then, he asked the Li family's patriarch to take him to the dungeon. Of course, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, Lin Feng, and the others went with him. As for Xian Yuanling, he went to the Emerald Cloud sect. Everyone went their separate ways. At the same time, not far from Lu City, in the main hall of the Emerald Cloud sect, a group of senior members of the Emerald Cloud sect gathered together. At the head of the table, the Emerald Cloud sect's patriarch, who already had the cultivation of a world leader, was gloomy at this time. A world leader was very strong, but in the land of sentient beings, it was nothing, especially in front of the Holy Temple. Why does this matter have anything to do with the Emerald Cloud sect? And where did that new martial artist come from? Asked the Emerald Cloud sect's patriarch coldly. Patriarch, we really don't know. We've already investigated, but we haven't found anything. As the Emerald Cloud sect's patriarch was gloomy, a deacon hurriedly came in. Patriarch, the envoy of the Holy Temple, has arrived in Lu City. He just entered the Li family's residence. The Li family's residence has been completely sealed. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2985. In the Blue Cloud sect, the deacon said that the temple's envoy had arrived in Lu City. For a moment, the Blue Cloud sect's higher-ups fell into silence. Their faces were ugly, including the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor. Speaking of which, the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor was probably a person with great luck. In the past, the Emerald Cloud sect was just a small sect, and he was only following a Dao transformation realm martial artist. It was impossible for him to break through to the Emperor realm. But because of the creation of the land of all living beings, the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor obtained a great opportunity. At that time, the land of all living beings was simply a cultivation treasure land. Even a pig could break through repeatedly, and the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor had such a great opportunity. His cultivation advanced rapidly, breaking through to the Emperor realm that he didn't even dare to dream of before. But even though his cultivation had undergone earth-shaking changes, the Blue Cloud sect had become a powerful force in the surrounding area. But when facing the temple, the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor couldn't help but tremble. Not for anything else, but because everyone knew that everything in the land of all living beings was created by the temple's divine ancestors, and everything they had was given by the divine ancestors. Since the divine ancestors could give them a supreme opportunity, they could naturally take it back. Not to mention, this matter was related to the origin world, and it had undoubtedly touched the bottom line of the divine ancestors. Taking a deep breath and forcing himself to calm down, the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor said in a deep voice, "Do you know which sir from the temple is coming?" "Old ancestor, it's Li Tian and Xian Yuanling's people. Also, it's said that the holy sons are accompanying them." Li Tian and Xian Yuanling? Hearing this, the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor's face turned ugly. In the land of all living beings, not only were Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and the other holy ancestors famous, but Li Tian and Xian Yuanling were also famous. Knowing that Li Tian and Xian Yuanling were Shao Chun and Lin Yun's people, the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor was stunned. He didn't expect the holy masters to send the two of them. Moreover, they even allowed the holy disciples to accompany them. This already showed the importance that the holy ancestors attached to this matter. This won't do. This old man must personally make a trip to Lu City. Since things have been linked to the Blue Cloud sect, the old ancestor of the Blue Cloud sect knew very well that it was impossible for him to stay out of it. Even if he did not show himself, the envoys from the temple would come knocking on his door, and he would be in an even more passive situation. It had to be said that the old ancestor of the Blue Cloud sect was not old and confused. In this case, taking the initiative to confess was obviously better than pretending to be stupid. However, just as the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor's voice fell, a voice sounded in the hall. "It seems that your Blue Cloud sect is not confused." Along with the voice, Xianyuan Ling's figure appeared in the hall. He had rushed all the way from Lu City and had not spent much time. To Xianyuan Ling, this bit of distance was merely a matter of taking a step. Seeing Xianyuan Ling appear, the Blue Cloud sect's upper echelons were all stunned. Who was this person? How was he able to enter the main hall without anyone noticing? Xianyuan Ling's reputation was very resounding, but there were actually not many people who had truly seen him before. Therefore, many people had only heard of his name and had never seen him before. Now, even if Xianyuan Ling stood in front of everyone in the Blue Cloud sect, no one would recognize him. Xianyuan Ling did not care about this. He just smiled and looked at the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor who was sitting on the main seat. "You're not bad. You know what to choose. I'm Xianyuan Ling, and I'm here on the orders of the Holy Lord to investigate this matter." Hearing the 3 words Xianyuan Ling, everyone present was stunned. Then, under the lead of the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor, they all knelt and bowed. "Greetings, Lord Envoy." Just now, they were still talking about Xianyuan Ling. They did not expect him to appear in the next second. Moreover, it seemed that Xianyuan Ling had heard their previous conversation. Fortunately, they did not say anything that crossed the line before. Otherwise, everyone in the Blue Cloud sect would probably want to die now. Xianyuan Ling had indeed heard the words of the Blue Cloud sect's people clearly. At the same time, the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor also mustered up his courage and said, "Lord Envoy, please understand. The matter of the new cultivators in Lu City has absolutely nothing to do with my Blue Cloud sect. No matter how bold my Blue Cloud sect is, we will not have any connection with the origin world. This matter is really just a misunderstanding. Who would have thought that an elder of the Blue Cloud sect would go out and have a conflict by chance? The other party was actually a new cultivator. This was definitely not premeditated. Of course, if it were not for this matter, the new cultivator would not have been exposed so quickly. After all, the new cultivator only had his 7 emotions and 6 desires extracted. On the surface, there was no difference between him and an ordinary person. After hearing the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor's explanation, Xianyuan Ling said indifferently, "I will only investigate these matters. Now your Blue Cloud sect is completely sealed. Before the matter is concluded, no Blue Cloud sect disciple is allowed to take half a step out of the sect." Yes. One sentence was enough to seal the entire Blue Cloud sect. Regarding this, the Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor did not have the slightest dissatisfaction. He only took the initiative to cooperate. The Blue Cloud sect's old ancestor was very clear that this matter could only take the initiative to cooperate with the Holy Temple. If they wanted to play tricks, they would only be courting death. Xianyuan Ling was quite satisfied with the Blue Cloud sect's attitude, so he reminded them. "As for the elder in Lu City, your Blue Cloud sect can forget about it. He probably won't be able to return. It would be very difficult for the elder to return to the Blue Cloud sect intact." Xianyuan Ling was very clear about Li Tian's methods. It would be good if he could keep his life. Although the elder was very likely innocent, so what? The Holy Temple did not have that much time to care about this. They could only use the most direct method to investigate this matter. In response, the Blue Cloud sect's upper echelons repeatedly agreed. Although it was uncomfortable to give up an elder, what could they do? Xianyuan Ling successfully arrived at the Blue Cloud sect and started the investigation. In Lu City, in the Li family's dungeon, Li Tian also brought Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, Lin Feng and the others to see the Blue Cloud sect elder. Seeing Li Tian arrive, the Blue Cloud sect elder was stunned at first, then he opened his mouth to beg. It really doesn't matter. I didn't know that was a new cultivator. Seeing that the Blue Cloud sect elder was crying and begging to explain, Li Tian ignored him and planned to use the soul-searching technique. But as Li Tian was about to use the soul-searching technique, Lin Feng stopped him. Uncle Li, that's not good. With his cultivation, I'm afraid that he won't be able to withstand your soul-searching technique. If it's light, he'll go crazy. If it's heavy, he'll die. Knowing the side effects of the soul-searching technique, Li Tian immediately used it. At the same time, Lin Feng and the others were a little surprised, but also a little reluctant. From the current situation, it seemed that the Blue Cloud sect elder was really innocent. It was unreasonable and too cruel to cripple him like this. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2986. They weren't sure if the Blue Cloud sect elder had anything to do with the new cultivators or not. Or was it just a coincidence? No matter what the reason was, they shouldn't have used the soul search technique. If they used the soul search technique, the Blue Cloud sect elder would be crippled, if not killed. Li Tian wasn't surprised by Lin Feng's words. He looked at Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others and smiled. What? Do you think so too? Uncle Li, isn't this a little too much? Obviously, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others thought so too. Li Tian smiled. He didn't seem angry at all. The patriarch of the Li family didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Being with Li Tian and the other important figures of the Divine Temple, the patriarch of the Li family found it extremely difficult to breathe. Li Tian ignored the leader of the Li clan and looked at Lin Feng and the others. Do you think I should investigate this matter slowly and get to the bottom of it? Isn't that right? Haha, then do you know what the divine ancestors want the result to be? Father and the others? Isn't that the truth? In Lin Feng and the others' opinion, Xiao Chen and Lin Yun had sent Li Tian and Xian Yuanling to investigate this matter thoroughly because they wanted the truth. However, Li Tian shook his head at this thought. No, the divine ancestors don't want the truth. In fact, the truth isn't important. What the divine ancestors want is the result. The result? Uncle Li, what do you mean? They didn't understand what Li Tian meant. They didn't want the truth, they only wanted the result. What did that mean? Li Tian smiled when he saw the confused look on their faces. That was why he said that these little guys still had a lot to learn. Especially when they encountered such an unexpected situation, they needed to learn even more. In your opinion, the truth is the most important thing, but for the divine ancestors, the truth isn't important. The result is the most important thing. Where did the new warriors come from? What method did the origin world use to send the new warriors to the land of all living beings? It's meaningless to the holy ancestors. What the divine ancestor really wants to know is who has colluded with the origin world and who is behind this new warrior. In the end, have you found all the people involved? As for who is innocent and who is guilty, we don't have the time to investigate thoroughly. Therefore, we would rather kill everyone wrongly than let anyone go. Do you understand? They would rather kill 1,000 by mistake than let one go. This was the result that Xiao Chen and the others wanted. To put it simply, what the holy ancestors want is stability. When they attack the origin world, they want to make sure that the land of living beings won't have any trouble. Do you understand? Lin Feng, Xiao Yao, and Xiao Lao all understood, but they couldn't accept it. What was this? Not asking for the truth, only the result. Was this a one-size-fits-all solution? But wouldn't this be too hasty? What will the world think of the Saint Palace? It doesn't matter. We have to choose the lesser of two evils. We don't have the time to investigate one by one. Children, remember one thing. Since ancient times, merciful people don't command armies. Being merciful was a good thing, but it depended on the time. Blindly being merciful wasn't a good thing. Could even be a bad thing. Just like now, if they followed Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao's plan, they would have to spend a lot of effort to investigate many things. However, did Xiao Chun and the others have that much time? Obviously, they didn't. The attack on the origin world was right in front of them. Xiao Chun and the others couldn't waste too much time on this matter. Therefore, they had to cut the Gordian knot. There was no room for hesitation or mercy. They could only use the most ruthless method to solve this matter in the shortest time possible. Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao fell silent when they heard Li Tian's last words. It was obvious that they were comprehending what Li Tian had just said. The Li family head broke out in a cold sweat. Was this the sacred palace's method? Once they acted, they wouldn't show any mercy. They wouldn't give the slightest chance. This was a true leader. They wouldn't be blindly merciful, but they wouldn't be absolutely cruel either. It was very complicated, but that was the truth. Li Tian arrived in front of the Emerald Sky sect elder. He didn't care about the elder's cries at all and directly used the soul-searching technique. The elder's eyes instantly became dull. It was obvious that Li Tian's spiritual energy was constantly attacking him. During this process, the memories of this Emerald Cloud sect elder continuously flowed into Li Tian's mind. There was no need to interrogate him at all. He already knew everything about the Emerald Sky sect elder. While Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling were moving at the same time, in Qinshan City, not far from Lu City, in the Wang family mansion, the Wang family head's expression was extremely gloomy. The new warrior that appeared in Lu City previously was none other than the Wang family head's son who had just been revived. After his son was revived, the Wang family head was extremely surprised. At first, he was very careful. However, after seeing that no one had discovered him, he slowly relaxed. However, who would have thought that his son would be exposed just by making a trip to Lu City? Moreover, the Sacred Palace had found out about this matter. Now, it was said that the Sacred Palace's emissary had already arrived in Lu City to investigate this matter thoroughly. After the matter was exposed, the Wang family head could be said to have been unable to sleep for the past few days. He was constantly worried about the development of this matter. Without a doubt, once this matter was exposed, the entire Wang family would suffer a calamity. However, the Wang family head had no other choice. He couldn't give up on his son. Moreover, even if he was willing, the Sacred Palace wouldn't let the Wang family off so easily. Damn it! Unable to come up with any good ideas, the head of the Wang family cursed angrily. At the same time, an elder of the Wang family hurriedly walked over. Family head, we've already found out. The Sacred Palace's emissary has indeed arrived in Lu City. It's Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling. What? It's Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling? Hearing this, the Wang family head's face darkened again. He originally thought that even if the Sacred Palace sent someone over, they would only send ordinary members at the bottom. However, who would have thought that the people who came this time would actually be Xianyuan Ling and Li Tian? These two people were definitely the upper echelons of the Sacred Palace. They were the absolute confidants of the various divine ancestors. For the two of them to come personally undoubtedly expressed the importance that the Sacred Palace placed on this matter. Under such circumstances, how many chances did the Wang family have to hide this matter? It seemed like there was no chance. The Sacred Palace obviously intended to investigate this matter to the end. They definitely wouldn't give up without a result. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 2987. Hearing that Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling were the ones in charge of the investigation, the Wang family head had not expected this. He had thought that the Divine Temple would at most send a few people to investigate. Now, a mere new warrior was not worth the Divine Temple's attention. Who would have thought that the Divine Temple would send Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling? Now that the two of them were personally involved, the implications were very different. It also proved that the Divine Temple valued this matter. Furthermore, other than Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the rest of the second generation were also with them. He could not understand why the Divine Temple would make such a big fuss over the appearance of a new warrior. It had to be said that the Wang family head had not figured out what the appearance of a new warrior meant to the Divine Temple and to Shao Chen and the other divine ancestors. A mere new warrior was not enough to make the Divine Temple nervous, let alone a threat. However, the appearance of a new warrior in the land of all living beings was far more significant than a threat. That was why the Divine Temple took it so seriously and swore to find out the truth. What do we do now? Seeing that the Wang family head was deep in thought, the Wang family head asked solemnly. Previously, some people in the Wang family had objected to this matter. They felt that they could not rely on the power of the origin world and should not even have any connection with the origin world. Otherwise, once this matter was exposed, it would be a disaster for the Wang family. However, the Wang family head did not listen to them at all. At that time, he was only thinking about how to revive his son. Therefore, the Wang family head did not care about the opinions of others. He insisted on making this choice. Now, he had been revived, but he had also caused a huge disaster and was targeted by the Divine Temple. They had not found out about the Wang family yet, but with the Divine Temple's methods, how long could they hide this matter? Once the matter was exposed, what kind of outcome would await the Wang family? After he said that, even the Wang clan elder sighed helplessly. He was already regretting his decision. They finally had a stable life in the land of all living beings, but because of the wrong choice, they were now facing a huge disaster. Hearing the elder's question, the head of the Wang family didn't have any good ideas. After pondering for a while, he could only reply in a deep voice. Take the young master away and hide him. We'll talk about it after this matter blows over. As long as I can't find him, there's no concrete evidence, and the temple can't do anything to me. After all, although the Divine Temple was the sole ruler of the land of all living beings, they still needed a reason to attack a force like the Wang family. As long as they couldn't find any evidence, perhaps the Wang family could escape with their lives. This was the only solution that the head of the Wang family could think of right now, and it was also the best solution at the moment. Hearing the family head's words, the elder from the Wang family helplessly nodded. That was true, they could only do this. However, they didn't know if doing so would be of any use. Soon, the Wang family elder left, and the Wang family young master was also secretly transferred away. It was as if the entire Wang family had never seen the young master before. The young master who was supposed to be revived had already died a few years ago. He ordered everyone in the Wang family to keep their mouths shut and not leak any information about the young master. Otherwise, the entire Wang family would be annihilated. This was the Wang family's way of dealing with it. Unfortunately, they were still a little too naive. In other words, if Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling weren't personally in charge of this matter, the Wang family might still have a chance of survival. However, now that Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling were personally in charge of this matter, the Wang family's method was undoubtedly mending the pen after the sheep were lost. Regardless of whether it was Li Tian or Xianyuan Ling's character, once they found a clue that pointed to the Wang family. Then, was the so-called evidence important? Would Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling make a move on the Wang family because they had no evidence? Obviously, it was impossible. Therefore, the Wang family head's hopes were destined to be dashed. In this matter, from the beginning, Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling had never thought of looking for any evidence. Just as Li Tian said, evidence wasn't important as long as the results were. Just as the Wang family was frantically erasing all traces of the young master. On the other side, Li Tian, who was in Lu City, also drew a portrait of the Wang family's young master based on the memories of the Emerald Cloud sect elder. Since there was a direct conflict, the Emerald Cloud sect elder naturally saw the Wang family's young master's appearance. Therefore, Li Tian directly drew it. As long as the identity of the person in the portrait was confirmed, everything would be solved. Li Tian said indifferently as he handed the portrait to a martial artist from the Divine Temple. Confirm this person's identity as soon as possible. With the Divine Temple's ability, it wasn't too difficult to find out the identity of a person with a portrait, even if he was a dead person. Immediately, the martial artist from the Divine Temple nodded in response and disappeared on the spot. As for the Emerald Cloud sect elder, after Li Tian forcefully searched his soul, he was completely dumbfounded. Although he was lucky to keep his life, he was completely crippled in this life. However, Li Tian didn't care about this at all. In just a few hours after arriving in Lu City, Li Tian had already found a clue. Next, he just needed to follow the vine to find the melon. Seeing Li Tian's swift and decisive methods, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, Lin Feng, and the others fell into deep thought. Li Tian didn't care about the opinions of others. He only wanted to solve this matter. And this was something that Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao should learn from. As for the Li family head, who had accompanied Li Tian the entire time, he didn't even dare to breathe loudly at this time. Seeing that Li Tian was done, the Li family head respectfully said, "Lord Emissary, I have prepared some wine to welcome you." "No need, I will be leaving soon." Li Tian directly refused. He didn't have time to enjoy now. Li Tian had to deal with this matter as soon as possible. Hearing this, the Li family head was a little puzzled. He had just drawn the portrait. Could it be that he found the person so quickly? In fact, it was indeed so. After only 2 hours, the martial artist from the Divine Temple returned with the portrait and said to Li Tian, "Lord, we have found the person." "Oh, tell me about it." "The person in the portrait is the young master of the Wang family from Qinshan City, which is not far from here. It is said that this person died 3 years ago." The young master of the Wang family from Qinshan City. When he heard this, Li Tian smiled and said indifferently, "Let's go to Qinshan City." They had found the person so quickly. The young master of the Wang family, but wasn't he dead? Hearing the identity of the two people, the crowd was a little suspicious. However, Li Tian looked extremely confident. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 2988. It had only been a few hours since they had arrived in Lu City, but Li Tian had already found out about the Wang family. There was no doubt about the Divine Palace's ability. They even had a portrait. It was only a matter of time before they found out about the Wang family. Perhaps even the Wang family head himself did not expect the Divine Palace to find out about them so quickly. Following Li Tian's words, everyone quickly left Lu City and went straight to Qin Tiancheng's Wang family. At the same time, Xianyuan Ling, who was in the Emerald Cloud sect, was also investigating the Emerald Cloud sect. He could confirm that the Emerald Cloud sect was not involved in this matter. The upper echelons of the Emerald Cloud sect heaved a sigh of relief. Since this matter had nothing to do with the Emerald Cloud sect, Xianyuan Ling naturally would not waste time here. Coincidentally, Li Tian also sent news that he had found some clues. The Wang family? In the Emerald Cloud sect's main hall, Xianyuan Ling muttered softly. He did not plan to go to the Wang family. It was enough for Li Tian to go. At this moment, Xianyuan Ling was thinking even further. Would this matter really be that simple? Was it just the Wang family? For some reason, Xianyuan Ling had a feeling that this matter was not over yet. This feeling kept telling him that not only was this not the end, but this was only the beginning. There was an even bigger net behind the scenes, waiting for everyone. Xianyuan Ling's premonition was not wrong. The exposure of the Wang family young master was not a coincidence. It was intentional by the primogenitors. Since the Wang family young master had been resurrected, the primogenitors would obviously not let him continue to hide. Therefore, when the Wang family young master appeared in Lu City, the Green Ancestor used a secret technique to order the Wang family young master to deliberately clash with the Emerald Cloud sex elder. It could be said that all of this was planned by the primogenitors. Their goal was to expose the existence of the new martial artist. Otherwise, Xiao Chun and the others would have already launched an attack on the origin world. At that time, it would be meaningless to expose the existence of the new martial artist. No one had realized that all of this was the primogenitor's scheme. Li Tian and the others quickly arrived in Qinshan City and went straight to the Wang family. Without any warning, Li Tian and the others landed in the Wang family residence. In the main courtyard, the guards of the Wang family immediately became nervous when they saw the sudden appearance of Li Tian's group. Dozens of people surrounded Li Tian's group, and the leader of the guards shouted angrily, "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the Wang family residence?" As the overlord of Qinshan City, the Wang family was used to being overbearing. Seeing Li Tian and the others barging into the Wang family's residence, they were naturally enraged. In response, Li Tian said with a calm expression, "Tell the head of the Wang clan to come out and see me. You're courting death. Do you think you can meet the patriarch just because you want to?" Ignoring the guard leader's bellow, Li Tian tossed out a token. Upon seeing the token, the guard leader was stunned. This was because it was a token of the Holy Temple. There was only one explanation for the temple's medallion, and that was that Li Tian and the others were from the temple. In the land of all living beings, everyone understood what the two words Sacred Hall represented. His back was instantly soaked in cold sweat, and he no longer looked as arrogant as before. He respectfully invited Li Tian and the others into the main hall, and then hurried to inform the patriarch. While waiting, Li Tian did not stay idle. He said to Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others, "I have a mission for you. Uncle Li, tell us, we promise to complete it." "Haha, it's not difficult. Bring people to lock down the entire Wang family residence. No one is allowed to leave without permission." Before meeting the patriarch of the Wang family, Li Tian had already given the order to lock down the entire Wang family residence. Furthermore, under the coverage of Li Tian's divine consciousness, every move of the Wang family residence was clearly known to Li Tian. While Li Tian was making the arrangements, on the other side, in the backyard of the Wang family residence, the patriarch of the Wang family residence had just finished dealing with his son's matter. Before he could relax, he heard from his subordinates that the people from the temple had arrived. Upon hearing this news, the patriarch of the Wang family was stunned, and then he felt a wave of fear. So fast? He did not expect the people from the temple to arrive so quickly. He had just sent his son away, and the people from the temple were already here. However, despite the lingering fear, the patriarch of the Wang clan was also glad that he had made the prompt decision to send his son away before the arrival of the divine palace. Now that his son had been sent away, the temple would not be able to find anything in the Wang family residence. This was the patriarch of the Wang family's only hope. However, before the patriarch of the Wang family could think further, another guard rushed in. "Patriarch, this is bad. The entire Wang family residence has been locked down by the temple. No one is allowed to enter or leave." Upon hearing this, the patriarch of the Wang family's face darkened. From the current situation, the temple might have already suspected the Wang family. Not long after, many elders of the Wang family also rushed over. The arrival of the temple had caused them to panic. Looking at the elders, the patriarch of the Wang family suppressed the panic in his heart. "Don't worry, I will take care of it." The cover-up had been completed, and the patriarch of the Wang family felt that it should be possible to fool them. Soon, the patriarch of the Wang family came to the main hall alone to meet Li Tian. Seeing Li Tian sitting on the main seat with a calm and indifferent expression, the patriarch of the Wang family was taken aback. However, he quickly recovered and bowed respectfully. The patriarch of the Wang family greets the Lord. Hearing this, Li Tian, who was resting with his eyes closed, slowly opened his eyes and looked at the patriarch of the Wang family in front of him. There was even a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. "You are the patriarch of the Wang family?" "Lord, I am the patriarch of the Wang family." "Oh, that's easy. I have a few questions to ask you." "Please ask, Lord. I will tell you everything I know." "Good. I heard that you have a son?" Indeed, there were. However, they died after 3 years. Li Tian seemed to be asking questions casually, and the patriarch of the Wang family answered smoothly with a calm expression. It had to be said that the patriarch of the Wang family had a good mentality. At least when facing Li Tian, he did not show any flaws. At first glance, it seemed that there was nothing wrong with the Wang family. It was just a misunderstanding. However, as the conversation between the two deepened, Li Tian's smile became brighter. From the beginning, Li Tian did not believe the patriarch of the Wang family. Even if his performance was impeccable, it did not mean that he was innocent. On the contrary, Li Tian was now certain that the Wang family must know something, and that the new martial artist was the only son of the patriarch of the Wang family. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2989. The Wang family head thought that he had done it flawlessly. First, he sent his son away. Then, during his conversation with Li Tian, he was very calm and collected. He thought that he had done well and did not think that Li Tian would discover anything. Even if Li Tian had his suspicions, he would not be able to find any evidence. Without evidence, what could the Divine Temple do? To the Wang family head, with the Divine Temple's character, they would not attack the Wang family unless they were caught red-handed. Otherwise, it would be a huge blow to the Divine Temple's prestige. Unfortunately, the Wang family head was wrong from the start. Did the Divine Temple really need evidence to attack the Wang family? The Wang family head thought that the Divine Temple was too simple, or rather, he thought that they were too righteous and pedantic. The Divine Temple would not kill the innocent, but it also depended on what the matter was and what the situation was. Even if there was no evidence, if Li Tian wanted to make a move against the Wang family, there would be no problem at all. After talking to the Wang family head, Li Tian smiled and looked at the Wang family head. "You are a very smart person. Thank you for the compliment." Hearing this, the Wang family head did not realize that something was wrong. Instead, he replied respectfully. Li Tian did not refute this and continued speaking. "But you are too smart for your own good. Do you think that without evidence, the Divine Temple will not attack the Wang family?" Li Tian's words stunned the head of the Wang family. That was exactly what he was thinking. However, he would definitely not admit it so easily. Therefore, the Wang family head pretended to be dumb and said that he did not understand what Li Tian was saying. Seeing the Wang family head still putting on an innocent act in front of him, Li Tian felt that the Wang family head's acting was too clumsy. After living for so many years and following by Lin Yun's side, Li Tian had seen all kinds of people. To Li Tian, a person like the Wang family head was just child's play. "I guess you sent your son away and erased all traces of him. You thought that you did it flawlessly. And the Divine Temple could not find any evidence. So the Wang family could escape this calamity, right?" "Sir, you must be joking. How could the Wang family do such a thing?" Even now, the head of the Wang clan still refused to admit it. Li Tian was not angry at all and continued to speak in an indifferent tone. "Actually, it does not matter if you admit it or not. It doesn't matter if you have evidence. As long as there is suspicion, I can make the Wang family disappear from this world. Do you think that the temple will not do this? Because the Divine Temple is righteous? Because this will affect the Divine Temple's prestige. But you are wrong. You are gravely wrong. Because our temple does not care about such prestige. What the temple needs is peace and stability. Anyone who can break this peace can be killed, and there is no need for any reason or evidence. You, the divine temple, do you think the divine temple to care? Whether it's good or bad, whether it's respectful or hateful, the temple is still the temple, so these things really don't matter. Li Tian said faintly. Hearing this, the head of the Wang family's heart sank. Had he been wrong from the very beginning? The divine to be killed as long as there is suspicion? The Wang family head still did not understand the divine temple. Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and the others might be the protectors of the world, but they were not pedantic people. They did not have the heart of a saint. Saving the world was their mission, because Shao Chun and the others' power came from the world. However, that did not mean that Shao Chun and the others could allow someone to do as they pleased right under their noses. Even if they were part of the world, they could still be killed if they violated the rules. In terms of decisiveness, Shao Chun and the others were not much worse than the primogenitors. In fact, they might even be better than the primogenitors. Therefore, the evidence that the Wang family head was thinking of was not a problem to the divine temple. This was because from the beginning to the end, Li Tian had never wanted to confirm any evidence. Hearing Li Tian's words, the Wang family head was stunned. He no longer had the calm and composed look on his face. Seeing the Wang family head's constantly changing expression, Li Tian smiled. Do you understand now? In my opinion, those ideas of yours are completely meaningless. They're just laughable. The Wang family head was stunned by Li Tian's words, but he quickly recovered. He still refused to admit it and made a final struggle. My lord, you must be joking. My Wang family really wishes. This matter has nothing to do with my Wang family. Perhaps someone is trying to frame me. Until now, the Wang family head still refused to admit it. He was still quibbling. Li Tian had seen too many people like him. However, as soon as the patriarch of the Wang clan finished speaking, a cultivator from the temple strode in and sternly spoke to Li Tian. My lord, we found it. In fact, when Li Tian was talking to the Wang family head, he had already ordered people to investigate the entire Wang family. Not a single corner could be missed. Therefore, the Wang family head did not know that the entire Wang family had been turned upside down in the time they were talking, and the people of the Wang family were all under control. Hearing that they had found something, Li Tian stood up and smiled at the Wang family head. Let's go and take a look. He led the Wang family head to a courtyard in the deepest part of the mansion. This was the forbidden area of the Wang family. Normally, only the patriarch of the Wang clan could enter. Even the elders of the Wang clan were not allowed to enter without permission. When they arrived at the courtyard, there was nothing out of the ordinary about it. However, when Li Tian and the others entered the room in the courtyard, they immediately noticed something. At a glance, he saw a teleportation array. There was a teleportation array in the room. Li Tian's eyes immediately flashed with coldness. As a formation master, he could naturally tell at a glance that it was a long-distance teleportation array. As for where it led to, if Li Tian's guess was correct, it was probably connected to the origin world. He did not expect that the Wang family was not only related to the new martial artists, but also directly connected to the origin world and set up a teleportation array. Li Tian did not dare to imagine how much trouble this teleportation array would cause in the future. Not to mention anything else, wouldn't the primogenitors be able to enter the land of living beings secretly through this teleportation array? At that time, if Shao Chun and the others left the land of living beings to attack the origin world, the primogenitors would be able to enter the land of living beings through this teleportation array. What would the consequences be? At that time, the entire land of living beings would probably be destroyed. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2990. Li Tian's eyes glinted coldly as he gazed at the small teleportation array. It seemed like the guts of the Wang family were much bigger than he had imagined. They had already reached the point where they were extremely daring. Not only did they use the new warrior method to resurrect his son, but they also set up a teleportation array that connected to the origin world. Wang family head, may I know where this teleportation array leads to? As a matter of fact, Li Tian didn't even need to ask because he had already guessed it. Although Li Tian was smiling, his smile was filled with endless murderous intent. Facing Li Tian's question, the Wang family head could no longer maintain his composure. His face turned pale, but he still replied stubbornly. I don't know. I've never seen this teleportation array before. Sir, please investigate. Until now, the Wang family head was still claiming innocence. Li Tian's smile became even colder. This Wang family head really deserves to die. Things have already turned out this way, yet he still wants to deny it. Good, very good. Li Tian couldn't be bothered to waste his breath on the Wang family head. He immediately gave the order to capture everyone in the Wang family, regardless of whether they were from the direct or collateral family. Whether they were in the Wang family residence or not, they were all captured and hunted down the Wang family head with all their might. Although the Wang family head had sent his son away and no one knew where he went, this wasn't an easy task for Li Tian. However, this wasn't a difficult task for Li Tian. Don't forget, Li Tian was an array master. Through the bloodline connection between the Wang family head and his son, Li Tian quickly determined the location of the Wang family head and immediately ordered his men to capture him. Seeing how effortlessly Li Tian found his son's hiding place, the head of the Wang family finally broke down. In fact, he did all this for his son. He didn't want his son to die just like that. But now, his son had been captured. Then, everything he had done before would have been wasted. His legs went weak and he knelt before Li Tian. Sir, please spare my life. I was just confused. If you want to kill me. Please spare my son's life. Even at this point, the Wang family head was still begging for his son to be spared. Li Tian didn't know what to say anymore. From a certain point of view, the head of the Wang clan was indeed a good father, but what he did was completely wrong. Everyone knew that the dead could not be brought back to life. Moreover, if a person was brought back to life using the methods of a new warrior, would they still be the same as before? It could be said that the Wang family head was completely controlled by the desire in his heart. He missed his son, so he did not hesitate to use such a method to turn his son into an existence that was neither human nor ghost, just to keep him by his side. But was this really the right thing to do? Or rather, if the young master of the Wang family had his own consciousness, would he feel that his father was doing this for his own good? Rather than continuing to exist in this world in a state that was neither human nor ghost, it would have been better for him to die a little more thoroughly. Looking at the head of the Wang clan who was kneeling on the ground and crying bitterly, Li Tian didn't say anything. The head of the Wang clan was indeed pitiful. He was only doing this because of the love a father had for his son. However, a pitiful person must have a detestable side. Just because of his selfish desires, how much of a threat had he brought to the entire land of all living beings? One had to know that if this transportation array had not been discovered in time, the entire land of all living beings would have experienced a catastrophe. And all of this was because of the head of the Wang clan's selfishness. After a few hours, the young master of the Wang clan was brought back. Looking at his son, the head of the Wang clan cried even more heart-wrenchingly. In stark contrast, the young master of the Wang clan was calm and indifferent. Perhaps even now, he still couldn't understand why his father was crying. Furthermore, he didn't understand what crying represented, and what it meant, because he no longer had the 7 emotions and 6 desires. He didn't know how to feel, nor did he have feelings. He wouldn't be sad, nor would he be happy. Looking at the calm young master of the Wang clan in his father's arms, Li Tian sighed. Was this what the head of the Wang clan wanted? Was this the kind of son he had in mind? A body that had the same appearance as his son after a few years? Waving his hand, Li Tian said, "Take them away. Leave no one in the Wang clan alive." Now that things had come to this, the Wang clan had no chance of survival. After such a thing happened, the Wang clan would definitely be exterminated. As the head of the Wang clan cried, the father and son were dragged out. From today onwards, the Wang clan of Qinshan City would no longer exist in the entire land of all living beings. Things seemed to have come to an end here. Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others were also touched by this. Because of a father's love for his son, things had ended up like this. Seeing how silent they were, Li Tian said, "There will always be regrets in the world. Everyone wants to make up for the regrets in their heart. They all want to go against the heavens and change their fate. They all want to turn back time." The primogenitors grasped this heart, which is why the head of the Wang clan fell into an endless abyss. He missed his son, but he didn't think that all of this had happened long ago. It can't be changed, and it can't be changed. Trying to change all of this by force will only harm everyone. Li Tian couldn't help but admire the primogenitor's ability to control people's hearts. They knew what all living beings wanted and what their weaknesses were. The 7 emotions and 6 desires were an indispensable part of living beings, but at the same time, it was also their biggest weakness. Therefore, the primogenitors wanted to create a new world and erase the 7 emotions and 6 desires of all living beings. They wanted to create a group of living beings without weaknesses. However, was it really good to be perfect? There were advantages and disadvantages. This was the meaning of life. Li Tian walked out of the room. The Wang clan had been uprooted and the teleportation formation had been destroyed, but he didn't feel relaxed because of this. The Wang clan had been tempted by the origin world and made the wrong choice. Then what about the other forces in the land of all living beings? Was there an existence like the Wang clan? Li Tian's worries weren't groundless. After the Wang clan's incident broke out, the figures of new cultivators appeared in another prefecture far away from Qin Tianqing. Moreover, it wasn't just one new cultivator this time. At the same time, news of new cultivators appearing in 3 different places in the land of all living beings broke out. Moreover, these 3 new warriors were the same as the young master of the Wang family. They were all discovered by others inadvertently. Everything seemed to be a coincidence, but when so many coincidences were put together, it wasn't as simple as a coincidence. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2991. Qinshan City's Wang Family. The entire Wang family disappeared in the long river of history overnight. Whether old or young, direct or collateral, as long as they were a member of the Wang family, no one was spared. Li Tian's decision seemed too cruel, but there was nothing he could do about it. The Wang family's actions were intolerable, so they had to disappear. That night, Li Tian reported what had happened in Qinshan City to Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, and the others. Originally, they thought that the matter would be over for now, and the land of living beings would be peaceful for a while. But who would have thought that 3 new cultivators would appear in various parts of the land of living beings? Moreover, they had appeared at the same time, and the process of their discovery was very similar to what had happened in the Wang family. News of the appearance of new cultivators spread again, and the location was in the opposite direction. The related forces had no connection at all. Early in the morning, Li Tian's brows unconsciously tightened when he received the news. Were they prepared long ago? One wave after another. Instinctively, Li Tian felt that someone was manipulating this series of events from behind the scenes. As for who was manipulating these events, it had to be the group of old fellows from the origin world. The Wang family was probably just one of them. There were even more forces in the land of living beings that had been bewitched by the primogenitors of the origin world. However, Li Tian had no way to deal with this matter. First of all, He couldn't be sure how many forces had been bewitched by the origin world. The land of all living beings was so huge that it wasn't easy to confirm this. Secondly, he couldn't be sure if the primogenitors had any backup plans. It was extremely time-consuming to investigate these two matters, but he couldn't just turn a blind eye to them. The appearance of the teleportation formation in the Wang family was undoubtedly a warning to everyone. If they ignored it, it was very likely that something big would happen. What did it mean to have a teleportation formation in the land of living beings that connected to the origin world? Didn't this mean that the primogenitors could enter the land of living beings as they pleased? Moreover, Shao Qin and the others couldn't guard against such a method. They didn't know how to guard against it at all. How could they allow others to sleep beside them? Therefore, these teleportation formations had to be dealt with. Otherwise, it would be a huge threat to the entire land of all life. Once Shao Qin and the others left the land of living beings and attacked the origin world for the second time, the ancestors could use these teleport formations to get to the land of living beings. At that time, there would be no one in the land of living beings to stop them, and the consequences would be self-evident. He had a headache. He didn't expect the primogenitors to do so many things without anyone knowing. Moreover, some people in the land of living beings were really stupid. They dared to contact the origin world. To put it bluntly, doing this with the primogenitors was no different from asking a tiger for its skin. They might have achieved their wish with the help of the primogenitors, but that was not the case at all. At the end of the day, these people were still being used by the progenitors. They just didn't know it. The severity of the situation was far beyond imagination. At the same time that Li Tian received the news, Shao Qin and the others naturally knew about it as well. In the sacred hall, Shao Qin, Little Qing, Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, Dong Fongyun, Mo He, Ancestor He and the others were gathered together. The 6 of them sat in a pavilion in the garden. Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian's expressions were somewhat unsightly. Mu Lingxian said coldly, "Those old bastards have already infiltrated the land of living beings." It could be said that the primogenitors had already infiltrated the land of living beings, but they hadn't sensed it at all. It was simply laughable. Shao Qin didn't say anything, but Mo He said, "It's useless now." According to the news Li Tian sent back, they didn't just bewitch people. They also set up teleport formations. We can't treat this matter lightly. We must destroy all the teleport formations. The threat of the new cultivators wasn't great. After all, just a few new cultivators weren't enough to shake the land of living beings' foundation. However, what worried Shao Qin and the others were the teleport formations. These teleport formations could teleport the primogenitors to the land of living beings at any time without anyone noticing. Once even a single primogenitor entered the land of living beings, the consequences wouldn't be good. It wasn't too difficult for the primogenitors to destroy the land of living beings with their strength. Even if Shao Qin and the others were to stop them, if a battle broke out in the land of living beings, the land of living beings definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. This was also why Shao Qin and the others had never thought of using the land of living beings as a battlefield. But now, with these hidden teleport formations, the primogenitors could bring the battlefield to the land of living beings. This was something Shao Qin and the others were extremely unwilling to see happen. It was also something they couldn't bear. Therefore, these teleport formations had to be destroyed. The most important question now was how many teleport formations there were and how many people were in contact with the primogenitors of the primogenitor world. It was obviously not an easy task to find out about these things in a place that was as vast as the ocean. But there was no other way. No matter how difficult it was, this matter had to be carried out. This time, even Little Qing didn't speak up to stop them. He knew very well what these teleport formations meant. If they didn't get rid of them as soon as possible, it would simply be too dangerous for the land of living beings. They were no different from ticking time bombs that could explode at any time. Investigate. Investigate thoroughly. Use all our forces. Even if we have to search the entire great 1,000 domains, we must get to the bottom of this matter. Lin Yun said. Although it was very troublesome, they had to get to the bottom of this. Otherwise, it would be too dangerous. The land of living beings couldn't allow such a threat to exist. Even if they had to use all the forces of the sacred hall, they had to get to the bottom of this matter. They had to find the teleport formations hidden in the dark one by one. Everyone nodded when they heard Lin Yun's words. Xiao Chen didn't object either. Although this might be very time-consuming and exhausting, so what? It had to be done. Even if they had to spend some time, they had to get rid of these threats. No one had any objections. In next to no time, Xiao Chen and the others gave the order to use all the forces of the Sacred Hall to thoroughly investigate all the forces in the land of living beings. Once they discovered that someone was in contact with the primogenitor world, there was no need to report it. Just kill without mercy. As soon as the order was given, the entire Sacred Hall tensed up and started operating quickly like a machine. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 2992. Following the orders of Xiao Chen and the others, at the center of the land of all living beings, where the temple was located. In just a few hours, many figures flew out in all directions. These people were all masters of the temple, and each of them was at least in the Emperor realm. They used to follow Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, Dong Fangyun, and the other divine ancestors. After the land of all living beings was established, they chose to join the temple. Although the temple usually didn't care about the land of all living beings, it didn't mean that the temple was weak. On the contrary, the temple produced many masters. Although there were many masters in the land of all living beings now, the land of all living beings had many masters. Moreover, because of the previous great opportunity, many masters had emerged from the various great forces in the land of all living beings. In particular, the number of Emperor Realm and Ancestor Realm masters had experienced an explosive growth. But even so, more than half of the Emperor Realm and Ancestor Realm masters and World masters in the land of all living beings still belonged to the temple. These were the masters of the temple, and the reason why the temple could firmly control the land of all living beings. Such overwhelming power was something that no force in the land of all living beings could compare to. This time, after the land of all living beings was established, the temple truly showed its power to everyone. Numerous masters from the temple came out in full force. Countless Emperor Realm and Ancestor Realm masters rushed to various parts of the land of all living beings. They only had one goal, and that was to thoroughly investigate all the forces in the land of all living beings and not let anyone escape. As long as they were found to be in cahoots with the origin world, they would be directly destroyed. In addition to the masters of the temple, people like Long Qing, Lin Yuan, the monk, the Taoist priest, and the others, who were in charge of this search, were also dispatched. Each person was in charge of one mansion. This was the arrangement of Xiao Chen and the others. This way, the efficiency would be higher, and they would be able to guard against any fish that slipped through the net. The monk and the Taoist priest lazily walked out of the temple and said helplessly as they looked at the masters flying across the sky. "Sigh, it's really troublesome." "It's a little troublesome, but don't complain. Can't you see that the divine ancestor and the others don't look good?" With the temperament of the monk and the Taoist priest, it was obvious that they were unwilling to deal with such troublesome matters. It was too much work, and it was extremely cumbersome, but there was no other way. When they thought of Xiao Chen, Lin Yun and the others' ugly expressions, the monk and the Taoist priest knew that there was no room for negotiation in this matter. Hearing the monk's words, the Taoist nodded his head helplessly. This was the only way. However, investigating all the forces in the land of all living beings wasn't something that could be done easily. It would probably take a lot of time and effort this time. Let's go. Hurry up. After greeting the Taoist priest, the monk walked away. The two of them were in charge of different prefectures, so it was naturally impossible for them to be together. At the same time, Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling, who were in Qinshan City, also received orders. The two of them had to rush to the three prefectures where new cultivators had appeared. Since new cultivators had appeared in these three prefectures, they had to immediately rush over. This meant that someone must have contacted the origin world. Therefore, the three prefectures were the most important places. They were given to Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling. In the Wang family's residence in Qinshan City, Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling, who had rushed over, sat opposite each other. They were surprised by Xiao Chen's decision. The two of them weren't surprised. After all, such a thing had happened. It was normal for Xiao Chen and the others to make such a decision. Let's split up. It'll be more efficient. Yes, that's the only way. Li Tian didn't refuse Xianyuan Ling's suggestion to split up. As for Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, and the others, Xiao Yao, Dongfang Lin, Xiao Luan, and Lin Feng followed Li Tian. The others followed Xianyuan Ling. After settling the matter, the two of them set off and left Qinshan City. In one night, Qinshan City was basically turned upside down. It was certain that there were no problems with the other major families, except the Wang family. No one had contacted the origin world, so there was no need to worry about Qinshan City. Such a big move by the sacred temple naturally made all the major forces in the land of all living beings anxious. Everyone was afraid of being implicated. However, the current situation wasn't something that could be solved by fear. Moreover, in the face of the arrival of the sacred temple's experts, no force dared to obstruct them. In this special period, anyone who dared to obstruct the sacred temple's actions would be eliminated directly. Search the sacred temple. Sir. Yes. From today onwards, the sect will be sealed. No one is allowed to enter or leave. Open all the forbidden areas and secret areas. Such a scene could be seen everywhere in the land of all living beings. After the sacred temple's experts arrived, the first thing they did was to seal the entire sect. Then, they asked the sect to open all the forbidden areas and secret areas. No matter where they were, even the ancestral shrine, they had to be opened unconditionally. This was because no one knew where those teleportation arrays would be carved. None of them could be missed. This time, the sacred temple wasn't joking. Therefore, in the face of such a request, the sect leaders of the major forces didn't dare to hesitate at all. They immediately complied. Countless forces had the sacred temple's experts stationed there and carried out an absolutely meticulous search. The Spirit Origin Valley was considered a relatively powerful force in the land of all living beings. There were 2 world lords in the sect. They also had 7 or 8 ancestor realm experts, making them the strongest force in the land of all living beings, second only to the sacred temple. But even so, when the sacred temple's experts arrived, the Spirit Origin Valley had no choice but to follow orders. Long Qing was in charge of the Spirit Origin Valley, and he personally commanded the sect to open all the forbidden areas and secret areas. The disciples of the Spirit Origin Valley were also interrogated. The sect leader looked around at the chaos in the Spirit Origin Valley, a grave expression on his face. Off to the side, an elder of the Spirit Origin Valley said with a complicated expression, "What do we do now, sect leader? What can we do? Do you really dare to defy the sacred temple? Besides, this is the decision of the exalted sacred ancestor. Anyone who resists will be destroyed." "But—" "No buts," the sect leader said. "Do as the sacred temple says. Cooperate fully and don't resist." In the face of the sacred temple, even someone as powerful as the Spirit Origin Valley couldn't possibly fight back. As soon as he finished speaking, the sect master of the Spirit Origin Valley sighed helplessly as he looked at the commotion outside the valley. "A storm is coming," he said. "I wonder how many people will suffer this time." It wasn't hard to imagine how the land of all living beings would be flooded with rivers of blood. Many organizations would be wiped out and would disappear from the face of the earth. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. Chapter 2993. Name, Age, and Origin. In the Spirit Origin Valley, every disciple had to go through an investigation by the sacred temple. Not only did they have to confirm their identity, but they also had to confirm their origin. This was a very complicated job, but none of the disciples of the Spirit Origin Valley dared to resist. The reason was simple. The sacred temple was not joking this time. Moreover, Shao Chen and the others had already made it clear. Any person or force that did not cooperate with the investigation would be dealt with as if they had colluded with the origin world. Everyone knew that this matter had crossed the bottom line of the Divine Temple, so no one dared to play any tricks on this matter. Even the sect master of the Spirit Origin Valley had to be respectful when facing the powerhouses of the Divine Temple. In the main hall of the Spirit Origin Valley, Long Qing sat on the main seat. Below him, the sect master and the other higher-ups of the Spirit Origin Valley sat upright. Long Qing swept his gaze across the crowd. He did not beat around the bush and spoke directly. I won't talk about this matter. Everyone should know that this matter is not trivial. Moreover, it was the Divine Ancestor who personally gave the order. I hope that the Spirit Origin Valley will not do anything stupid. In addition, after the investigation of the Spirit Origin Valley is over, I need you to accompany me in investigating the other forces. The land of all living beings was so large and there were so many forces. It was naturally difficult for the sacred temple to thoroughly investigate all of them. Therefore, they could only rely on the forces of the Spirit Origin Valley. They had a large number of people and high prestige in a certain area. With their help, it would naturally be easier. Of course, there was a prerequisite. They had to ensure that they had not colluded with the origin world, and that they were innocent. Otherwise, if there was something wrong with these forces and they were asked to help investigate, it would be a case of a thief crying out to catch a thief. It would be a disaster. This was why Long Qing, the monk, and the Taoist masters had attacked these forces as soon as they had arrived. Only by proving their innocence would the Holy Temple be at ease to use them and let them help the Holy Temple investigate other forces. For now, the Spirit Origin Valley should not have any problems. Moreover, the Spirit Origin Valley had been very cooperative from top to bottom, whether it was the forbidden areas or secret cultivation areas. Even the Spirit Origin Valley was opened to the experts of the temple without hesitation. Moreover, none of the disciples of Lingyuan Valley had been found to be suspicious. Therefore, Long Qing trusted Lingyuan Valley for the time being. With such a premise, it was normal for the Spirit Essence Valley to help the Sacred Hall. When the conditions were right, success would come naturally. Hearing Long Qing's words, the Spirit Essence Valley sect leader and the other higher-ups naturally wouldn't refuse. On the contrary, they were quite happy to agree. We will do our best to fulfill the Holy Lord's request. To be able to help the temple, it would only be beneficial to the Spirit Essence Valley. Not to mention that he would gain the favor of the temple would definitely reward him after the matter was over. This was the way Shao Chen and the others did things. They were never stingy when it was time to reward. For example, the Spirit Origin Valley, who had helped out, would definitely be rewarded when the time came. Even for the Spirit Origin Valley, these rewards were extremely precious. After all, it was the Divine Temple, and any random item they took out was enough to be called a peerless treasure. Their attitude was very proper. Seeing this, Long Qing nodded in satisfaction. The tactfulness of the Spirit Origin Valley had saved him a lot of trouble. For example, Long Qing, the monk and the Taoist priests were more relaxed, at least for the time being. On the other hand, Xianyuan Ling and Li Tian were completely different. They were going to the area where the new warrior had been found. Therefore, things were more troublesome, and time was even more tight. After parting ways with Li Tian, Xianyuan Ling brought Xiao Lao and the others to a city where the new warrior had been found. This city wasn't big. Just like the incident with the Wang family, the new warrior had been found in this city without any warning. But until now, the identity of the new warrior was still a mystery. They went directly to the city lord's mansion. This was a Shaoqin, and there weren't any big family clans in it. Therefore, everything in the city was handled by the city lord's mansion. Since Xianyuan Ling and the others had just arrived, they naturally had to investigate the city lord's mansion first. In the main hall, Xianyuan Ling sat on the main seat, with Xiao Lao and the others on his left and right. Just like before, the city lord's mansion and the entire city were completely sealed off. The people from the divine temple took over. At this moment, the city lord stood in front of Xianyuan Ling and said nervously, "Lord Envoy, we don't know the identity of the new warrior." Naturally, the city lord knew the purpose of Xianyuan Ling and the others' visit, so he was extremely nervous, afraid that he would be implicated. But, is this just a matter of being implicated? Speaking of which, the new warrior's identity was none other than the deceased wife of the city lord in front of him. Just like the Wang family head, the city lord had fallen ill from longing. Then, under the instigation of the origin world, he made a deal with the ancestors. The primogenitors also kept their promise and revived his dead wife. Speaking of which, ever since his deceased wife was resurrected, he had been very careful, afraid that this matter would be exposed. He knew very well what the consequences would be if this matter was exposed, but who would have thought? Just 2 nights ago, for some reason, his wife suddenly rushed out of the city lord's mansion like crazy. After arriving in the city, she kept causing destruction and finally exposed her identity. The city lord reacted immediately and took his wife back to the city lord's mansion to hide. He also secretly killed those who had seen his wife. However, the matter still spread and was immediately known by the divine temple. The city lord could be said to be extremely flustered, but he still forced himself to calm down in front of Xianyuan Ling. Unfortunately, his acting skills and mental strength were obviously much weaker than the Wang family head. In front of Xianyuan Ling, he was full of flaws. Looking at the pale city lord, Xianyuan Ling did not say anything. He already had a preliminary judgment in his heart, and the city lord's mansion was the most important. Xianyuan Ling said unhurriedly as he looked faintly at the city lord below. "I wonder if you've heard of this saying?" "What saying?" "It's called 'if you knew it would come to this, why did you do it in the first place?' Now that this matter has been exposed, do you know what will happen to your family and the entire city lord's mansion?" The moment Xianyuan Ling said that, the city lord was stunned on the spot, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Xianyuan Ling's words made it clear that the city lord's mansion had become the main suspect. He did not expect himself to be exposed so quickly. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2994. Hearing Xianyuan Ling's words, the city lord was instantly stunned. His face turned pale, and his back was instantly soaked in sweat. He had always thought that he had performed well, but he never thought that Xianyuan Ling would suspect him like that. He did not know what he had done wrong to make Xianyuan Ling suspect him. He did not seem to have given himself away. Could it be that the great messenger was testing him? That's right, he was definitely testing him. After the initial nervousness of the attack, the city lord quickly realized that Xianyuan Ling was testing him. Because from the looks of it, Xianyuan Ling did not have any evidence. Moreover, those who had been in contact with his wife were all killed by him in advance. It was impossible for them to leave any clues behind. If that was the case, how could Xianyuan Ling suspect him so quickly? He could not help but praise himself. Fortunately, he did not give himself away just now. Pretending to be calm, the city lord looked at Xianyuan Ling and said innocently, "Great messenger, I don't understand what you mean." The city lord played dumb. "I don't understand what you mean, and I don't know what you're talking about. This matter has nothing to do with me." Looking at the city lord who was still stubbornly resisting, Xianyuan Ling smiled and was not angry at all. He had already guessed that this would be the outcome. People like him would not shed tears until they saw the coffin. "You think that I don't have any evidence now?" His gaze was calm and his tone was calm. Hearing that, the city lord did not regret it. "Great messenger, I really have nothing to do with this matter." He still refused to admit it. Seeing that, Xianyuan Ling could not be bothered to say anything else. He gave Xiao Lao a look, and soon, the city lord's wife was brought in by an expert from the divine temple. Seeing his wife appear, the city lord was instantly dumbfounded. He stood rooted to the ground and could not believe that his wife would appear there. After the incident, he sent his wife away immediately. Moreover, in order to reveal a flaw, he did it very secretly. Even the entire city lord's mansion did not know about it. He had personally sent his wife away and hid her in a place that he thought no one would be able to find. He thought that it was flawless, but who would have thought that his wife would be found by the divine temple after a short period of time? How did the holy temple find his wife? The city lord couldn't understand. But now was obviously not the time for him to dwell on this. His wife had been found, and the situation seemed to be completely different from what he had imagined. Actually, the city lord did not know that before he arrived here, Xianyuan Ling had already ordered people to secretly investigate the city lord mansion. They found out that a woman had suddenly disappeared from the city lord's mansion. Even the people in the city lord's mansion did not know the identity of this woman. Moreover, she seemed to have appeared out of thin air. Normally, the city lord would not allow anyone to come into contact with this woman. Upon hearing this news, Xianyuan Ling immediately guessed that this woman might be the city lord's deceased wife. It was not difficult for the temple to investigate the past of the city lord. He knew that his wife had already passed away a few years ago. Now that she had reappeared, there was only one explanation. The city master had colluded with the origin world. The origin world had helped him revive his wife. This was also why Xianyuan Ling was certain that this matter was related to the city lord's mansion from the very beginning. He had already ordered people to capture the city lord's wife, even though the city lord thought that he had done it flawlessly. No one could find the whereabouts of his wife, but he still underestimated the power of the temple. In the land of all living beings, it was not an exaggeration to say that if the temple was determined to find someone, it would be impossible for them not to find her unless she disappeared from the face of the earth. Moreover, in such a short period of time, it was impossible for the city lord to bring his wife to a faraway place. Therefore, it was even easier to find her. It did not take long for the temple to find this person and bring her back directly. Compared to the city lord's panic, his wife was obviously very calm. This was normal. After all, a new warrior did not have emotions and would not be afraid at all. Even though she was now captured by the temple, she did not panic at all. Xianyuan Ling said unhurriedly as he glanced at the city lord's wife, and then looked at the city lord. "Now, do you have anything else to say?" The city lord did not know what to say when his wife had fallen into the hands of the temple. He remained silent and looked at his wife with a complicated gaze. The reason he did all this was because of his wife. He missed his dead wife too much. When he found out that the origin world could resurrect his dead wife, the city lord agreed to cooperate with the origin world in a fit of obsession. Although he knew that his dead wife was no longer the same person after she was resurrected, so what? He only wanted to be by his wife's side. Even if she did not have emotions and did not know what feelings were, as long as he could see her every day, he would be satisfied. He unconsciously wanted to walk to his wife's side. Seeing this, the expert from the temple was about to stop him when Xianyuan Ling spoke. Let him be. With Xianyuan Ling's order, the expert from the temple respectfully retreated to the side, and the city lord successfully came to his wife's side. He gently held his wife's hand. Although his wife still had a dull expression, as if she did not feel anything at all. The city lord's face revealed a warm smile as he held his wife's hand again. He gently held his wife's hand as if he was holding a treasure and would not let go no matter what. At this moment, there was only a gentle smile on the city lord's face. He looked at his wife and spoke slowly. Actually, I know the methods of the origin world. When a new cultivator is resurrected, they will not be the same person at all. They will only have the same appearance. Even so, I am willing. I do not have many thoughts. I just want to be able to see her every day when I wake up. I want to be by her side and look at her like this. Although she may not have any feelings and does not know what love is, she will not understand my love. Even so, I do not care. As long as I can be by her side, it will be fine. Then, the city lord turned his head and looked at Xianyuan Ling with a hint of pleading in his eyes. My lord, I do not have any other wishes. I know that I cannot escape death. I only hope that I can be buried with her after I die. That is enough. I hope that my lord can grant my wish. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2995. At this point, the city lord also knew that he had no chance of surviving. Therefore, he did not beg for mercy. Moreover, he knew the consequences of doing so from the very beginning. Perhaps he was like the Wang family head. The reason why they had agreed to go to the origin world was not because of the primogenitor's ability to bewitch people. It was entirely because of the desire in their hearts that caused mischief. Their longing for their loved ones had made them make such a decision without hesitation. Did they not know the changes that occurred after a new cultivator was resurrected? Did they not know that new cultivators did not have emotions and desires? Did they not know that their loved ones were no longer the same people after they were resurrected? Obviously, they knew all of this. After all, they had fought with the origin world for so long. How could they not know what new cultivators were like? Even so, they still made their choice in the end. Even if they were no longer the same people in their memories, even if they did not have emotions and desires, so what? They knew all this. However, just as the city lord had said, he did not care about this. Or rather, he could accept this. In their hearts, the only thing they wanted was to see their loved ones by their side every day when they woke up. It did not matter even if she was just a bag of skin. It did not matter even if she did not know them at all. As long as they could see her every day, it was enough. Just like the current city lord and his wife. Facing her husband's words, the wife's expression was wooden, as if what her husband said had nothing to do with her. She was not moved by her husband's words at all. Perhaps to her, this person who had held her hand and wanted to protect her until the last moment was just a stranger. Even though she clearly knew that this person was her husband, her most intimate lover, she had long forgotten how to love him. Xianyuan Ling's expression did not change much when he heard the city lord's words. He only sighed secretly in his heart. Perhaps this was the terrifying part of the origin world. It was a method that could resurrect new cultivators. To all living beings, it was undoubtedly like looking at a Pandora's box. It drew out the most primitive and pure desires in many people's hearts. Once such thoughts appeared, it was very difficult to get rid of them. They clearly knew that it was wrong, but they still walked on this path of no return without hesitation. Perhaps this was human nature. It was very contradictory but also very real. All right. Faced with the city lord's final request, Xianyuan Ling did not reject it and directly nodded in agreement. Seeing this, the city lord couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. This was his final wish, and he was already very satisfied to be able to achieve it. Many thanks, my lord. My apologies for the trouble I've caused you, sacred ancestor. As he spoke, the city lord turned to look at his wife. Seeing that his wife was still in a daze, the city lord smiled gently. Being able to be buried with you is already the best outcome. Without much hesitation, the city lord pointed out a finger, and the finger light instantly pierced through his wife's heart. Death didn't make his wife feel any fear. Her expression didn't change at all. After killing his wife, the city lord also directly cut off his own heart veins. Under the witness of Xianyuan Ling and the others, the city lord and his wife both died. Xianyuan Ling waved his hand as he looked at the two people who were still hugging each other even in death. Take them away and give them a proper burial. Also, kill all those who are related to this matter. Xianyuan Ling didn't know what he was feeling, but he didn't show any mercy. Although the city lord's feelings were understandable, he couldn't forgive him. If everyone was like the city lord and did such a thing for their own selfish desires, then the entire land of all living beings would probably collapse on its own. Thinking of the result, the land of all living beings would probably be flooded with new cultivators. When that time came, what would the land of all living beings amount to? Hearing Xianyuan Ling's words, the sacred temple experts below respectfully acknowledged, and then took the bodies of the city lord and his wife away. The matter here was considered resolved, but no one knew how many similar things would happen in the entire land of all living beings. By now, Xianyuan Ling had already thought it through. In fact, the problem didn't lie with the primogenitors, but with these people themselves. Faced with the temptation of being able to see their loved ones again, these people couldn't resist, so they made such a choice. Every one of them knew the consequences, but every one of them did not hesitate. It was truly laughable. Uncle, do you think what he said just now was true? At this time, Xiao Lao also looked at Xianyuan Ling and asked him. Obviously, what the city lord said just now had touched Xiao Lao's heart. Moreover, Xiao Lao felt that it was very strange. He clearly knew the consequences of doing so, but why did he still make such a choice? Wasn't this clearly knowing that he would die, but still taking the initiative to die? Was there really such a foolish person in this world? Xiao Lao didn't have much understanding of these things. Seeing this, Xianyuan Ling asked with a smile. If one day your mother and the others died, would you make such a choice? Would you resurrect her as a new cultivator? Instead of answering, he directly threw the question to Xianyuan Ling. After saying this, without waiting for Xiao Lao to reply, Xianyuan Ling got up and left. He still had to find the teleportation array. Just now, the city lord had already told Xianyuan Ling the location of the teleportation array. Now, he had to destroy the array. This was the most important problem. Watching Xianyuan Ling leave, Xiao Lao kept thinking about the question just now. If his mother had died, would he have made the same choice as the city lord? Xiao Lao didn't know, but he was sure that if his mother really died, he would be very sad. If there was a chance, how could he not want his mother to come back from the dead and continue to be by his side? Although he didn't know how to put it, Xiao Lao seemed to understand the city lord's way of doing things. Was he stupid? It was indeed very stupid, but there was no other way. In order to be able to see his loved ones, this was nothing. In fact, what Xianyuan Ling really wanted to tell Xiao Lao was that this matter seemed to be a conspiracy of the ancestors. In the big picture, the real problem was with the living beings. They wanted to see their loved ones, so they took this path. Even if the ancestors didn't tempt them, once they had such thoughts, they would very likely be unable to resist contacting the ancestors. Desire was like an inner demon. Once it appeared, it was very difficult to control. Therefore, in order to solve this problem, the most important thing was not with the ancestors, but with the living beings of the world. If this problem couldn't be solved, then there was no way to prevent this kind of thing from happening. After all, there were always so many fools in this world, whether it was you or me. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2996. After leaving the main hall, Xianyuan Ling went to the backyard of the city lord's residence and found the teleportation array there. Just like the Wang family's teleportation array, it was a small teleportation array. After checking, it was confirmed that this teleportation array had not been used before. Without hesitation, he destroyed it. The teleportation array was destroyed, and the city lord's residence would probably be cleaned up. Many people would lose their heads because of this. Sighing, Xianyuan Ling said bitterly, "Will you really not regret it?" Recalling the city lord's last words, Xianyuan Ling had mixed feelings. He said that he would not regret it, but was it true? Everything went smoothly here. After settling the matter at the city lord's residence, Xianyuan Ling led Xiao Yao and the rest to their next destination. This time, Shao Chen and the rest were ordered to investigate the entire land of all living beings. Therefore, the workload was not small. Meanwhile, Li Tian, who was in another place, also found evidence of a new warrior. In a large family clan. As the head of the family, he used the same method to revive his wife. As for the reason, it was the same as the city lords. Like Xianyuan Ling, Li Tian did not spend much effort to capture the wife of the head of the family. When he saw his wife, the head of the family was also stunned, but he quickly gave up. He had been caught red-handed. What could he say now? However, compared to the city lord, the head of the family was obviously more resentful. He first looked at his wife gently, then turned his head and looked at Li Tian unwillingly. As long as I live with my wife, even if she is a new warrior, what threat does she pose to the land of all living beings? Why can't we tolerate her existence? Is the divine temple really so heartless? He felt that he did not do anything wrong. Furthermore, ever since his wife was revived, he had been taking care of her carefully and did not cause her any trouble. But why was the divine temple so ruthless? Was it because his wife was a new warrior? So what if she was a new warrior? How could a mere new warrior pose any threat to the divine temple? Li Tian was furious. Facing the question of the head of the family, he replied expressionlessly, "It's not wrong for you to miss your late wife. So the divine temple is so overbearing? I'm not done yet. It's not wrong to miss someone, but it's wrong to make a decision because of that. You think you can take good care of your deceased wife. Let's not talk about whether you can do it, but have you ever thought about what the entire land of all life would be like if everyone was like you? The world is in chaos. I think you're not the only one who lost your family. If everyone is like this, then wouldn't the land of all living beings be filled with new martial artists? And these new warriors will only listen to the primogenitor's orders. You know this, right? How are you going to control them? Did he kill his wife with his own hands? Because of your own selfish desires, you disregarded the entire land of all living beings. Have you ever thought about others like this?" His tone was very calm, without any anger, as if he was talking about something very normal. Hearing Li Tian's words, the clan leader fell silent. How could he not know this? Moreover, Li Tian's words were very accurate. He was indeed trying to satisfy his own selfish desires. After fighting against the origin world for so many years, which family in the land of living beings hadn't lost a family member? That was the truth, but very few people had done what he had done. He stood there with a complicated expression, not knowing what to say. At this moment Li Tian continued. Birth, old age, sickness and death, the cycle of reincarnation. This is the rule of the world. Anyone who breaks this rule will be punished. Turn around and look. You've always been immersed in the past. Have you ever thought that when people die, new lives will be born? This is the meaning of life. While speaking, Li Tian's gaze fell on the family members in the courtyard. At the same time, the clan leader did the same. His eyes reddened instantly. That's right. He had always missed his deceased wife, but he had never paid attention to the birth of new lives in the family. Looking at the crying babies in the hands of many of the family members, they represented new lives. In just a short year, so many new lives had been born. Unfortunately, he had never paid attention to them before. Only now, after Li Tian's reminder, did he really pay attention to his descendants. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. He turned his head and said softly, "Sir, can you spare my life? Sir, can you spare these little fellows? They don't know anything. Do you understand now?" Hearing this, Li Tian didn't answer. It was a very sad thing to be immersed in the sorrow of the past, but to be unwilling to look forward to the future. It was a pity that he understood this at the last moment, but it was all too late. Was it worth it to bury an entire family for a person who could never return? Without saying anything, Li Tian waved his hand. The surrounding cultivators of the divine temple naturally acted. Without a doubt, this family was uprooted. All of the clansmen had been killed, but the babies had been spared. No matter how cruel Li Tian was, he couldn't bear to kill these babies who were crying piteously for food. And they would be arranged to live in a new family. Perhaps even in death, these babies wouldn't know their identity, and wouldn't know that they were once part of this family. But to them, this was already the best outcome. Seeing the entire family being killed, Xiao Yao and the others still couldn't bear to see it, but they didn't say anything. Just like what Li Tian had said, this matter might seem tragic, but it had to be contained. Otherwise, if everyone was like this, what would become of the land of all living beings in the future? Would new cultivators be everywhere? Would the land of all living beings occasionally turn into a pot of porridge after the primogenitors gave the order? No matter how tragic and pitiful the reason was, they couldn't make such a choice. The dead were already dead, but at the same time, new lives were constantly being born in this world. This was reincarnation. It wasn't a good thing to only look at the past and be immersed in the past without seeing the future. The entire family was completely annihilated, and such a scene was playing out everywhere in the land of all living beings. The number of new cultivators was much more than Xiao Chen and the others had imagined. Many people had reached an agreement with the origin world because of their own selfish desires, so that their deceased relatives could be resurrected in a different state. Everyone might have their own reasons, but it couldn't be an excuse for them to make such a choice. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2997. Everyone had their own reasons for becoming a new martial artist. Furthermore, their stories could also be tragic. They had chosen this method because they loved the dead, but this couldn't be used as an excuse. If everyone only thought about themselves, then the entire land of all life would probably be in complete chaos. At that time, the land of all life would probably fall apart before the origin world could do anything. Nothing could be accomplished without rules. No matter what reason one had, there were some things that couldn't be done. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, the land of all life could be said to be in complete chaos. New cultivators appeared one after another in various places, and there were already a few hundred of them. Moreover, new cultivators appeared in every place. There was even a teleportation formation in the sacred palace. In other words, the origin world had at least a few hundred teleportation formations in the land of all life. Just thinking about it made one feel afraid. Just think about it. If Xiao Chun and the others hadn't paid attention to the first new cultivator, then what would the consequences have been? If Xiao Chun and the others had been careless, they would have chosen to attack the origin world directly. Then, these teleportation formations would very likely have become the sharpest dagger that pierced through the land of all life. At that time, Xiao Chun and the others would definitely not be able to return in time when the battle started. Moreover, with so many teleportation formations, the matter wouldn't be as easy to deal with as it had been before, because it was impossible to stop the origin world from entering the land of all life. Once the battle started, it would start directly inside the land of all life. The consequences of this were obvious. These teleportation formations were the ones that couldn't be looked down upon. As more and more teleportation formations were discovered, the mood of Shao Chen and the others grew heavier and heavier. Although it seemed like teleportation formations had been discovered one after another, who knew how many more were hidden in the dark? No one could guarantee that the teleport formation between the origin world and the land of living beings had been eliminated. It was something that no one could say for sure. So, even though more than half a year had passed, the new cultivators had been discovered one by one. However, Shao Chen and the others didn't relax at all. Moreover, what Shao Chen and the others found even harder to accept was how the origin world was able to construct so many teleportation formations in the land of all beings in such a short time. Without exception, the carvings of these teleportation arrays were all completed by the forces of the land of all living beings. It could be said that they had colluded with the enemy and joined the origin world that they had once hated so much. Without the help of the forces in the land of all living beings, the origin world wouldn't have been able to carve a teleportation formation in the land of all living beings. This was because it was impossible for them to even enter the land of all life. As the saying goes, it's hard to guard against a thief in your own home day and night. The feeling of being betrayed by your own people was definitely not a good feeling. Moreover, these people were the people that Shao Chen and the others had risked their lives to protect. However, in the end, they had chosen to betray them. In the sacred hall, Shao Chen, Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, Dongfang Yun, Mo He, Ancestor He, and Shao Qing sat together with ugly expressions. This was the umpteenth time they had met in the past half a year. Although Shao Chen and the others hadn't taken action directly, they obviously weren't having a good time. The situation has stabilized. I estimate that in a few more months, we'll be able to completely eliminate the remaining threats, said Mu Lingxian. They had spent half a year investigating the land of all living beings, and now, it was finally going to end. However, no one was happy about this. Dongfang Yun said in a low voice, "This is just a temporary solution. Doing this can only treat the symptoms but not the root of the problem. What if something like this happens again? Yes, these people miss their deceased relatives. No one can guarantee that something like this won't happen again. It's not that we can't guarantee it. It's very likely that something like this will happen again. After all, human nature is like this." Shao Chen and the others naturally knew that up until now, what they had done couldn't be considered a success. This was because they hadn't solved the root cause of the problem at all. Just as Dongfang Yun had said, they had eliminated all the threats this time. They had dealt with all the new cultivators and the teleportation arrays. But what about the future? Who could guarantee that no one would contact the origin world again? Who could guarantee that no one would make a deal with the origin world because they missed their deceased relatives? Was it really impossible for such a thing to happen? Obviously, it wouldn't. Under such temptation, many people had already disregarded life and death. Moreover, during the investigation for half a year, many people weren't afraid of death at all. According to them, from the moment they made the choice, they already knew the result. But why did they still do it? It was very simple. It was because they wanted to see their loved ones again. As long as they could see their loved ones again, they would be satisfied. Even if they had to pay the price with their lives, they would be willing to do so. It was hard to understand, wasn't it? But when you encountered a similar situation, how could you be sure that you wouldn't make the same choice? This was what Shao Chen and the others needed to solve. Only by solving this problem could they truly prevent such a thing from happening again once and for all. Like I said before, we need to focus on education and enlighten the living beings. Let them understand the principle of reincarnation, said Lin Yun. Enlightening the living beings was something they definitely needed to do. However, it was a long-term process after all. It would be difficult to see the results in a short time. Everyone had already discussed this point many times. Furthermore, they had already started to implement it. Currently, the entire land of all living beings was filled with people from Sacred Temple and other major forces. They were constantly enlightening the living beings. They were telling them about the reincarnation of life and death. They were telling them to go against the heavens. After they came back from the dead, that person was no longer the person they remembered. However, it was very difficult to achieve stable results in a short time with this method alone. Xiao Chun and the others didn't have that much time right now. Everyone spoke one after another. In the end, Xiao Chun said in a deep voice, "The reason why the living beings chose to revive their loved ones and were bewitched by the origin world is because their souls have no sustenance." Hearing this, Lin Yun and the others were stunned at first. Then, they looked at Xiao Chun. Mo he even asked, "That's right. That's the reason. Xiao Chun, since you said so, could it be that you already have a solution?" "I do have some ideas. Next, not only do we need to continue the work of enlightening the living beings, but we also need to make them understand that coming back from the dead is against the rules of the heavens. In addition, we need to build soul towers all over the land of all living beings to give their souls a home and sustenance. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 2998. Building a pagoda was a way to provide sustenance for the souls of all living beings. Everyone nodded in agreement when they heard Xiao Chen's words. It was difficult to see any results in a short period of time if they only relied on education. However, it would be a different story if they could build a pagoda. The pagoda Xiao Chen spoke of was no ordinary pagoda. It was a place that could truly enshrine souls. In other words, after a person died, their soul would quickly dissipate. Once the pagoda was built, the power of the formation within would be able to preserve a trace of the person's soul for a period of time. Then, the pagoda would create a memorial tablet for future generations to worship. Of course, this was only one of its effects. What really made Xiao Chen and the others think highly of the pagoda was that once the pagoda enshrined a trace of soul power, then, even if the origin world collected the souls of the dead, it would not be perfect. At that time, even the primogenitors would not be able to use the incomplete soul to revive the dead. This was the most important thing. It was also the real way to move around in the origin world. However, according to Xiao Chen and the others' idea, every city in the land of all living beings had to have a pagoda. This was not a small project. After all, the land of all living beings was enormous. To build a pagoda in the entire land of all living beings would definitely require a huge investment. However, even if the investment was huge, Xiao Chun and the others did not plan to give up. This was something that had to be done. Firstly, it could provide sustenance for all living beings. Secondly, it could completely prevent the origin world from reviving the dead. Although it was not useful for the new cultivators, the origin world would not be able to collect the souls of those who died in the land of all living beings. This way, things like the appearance of new cultivators in the future could be easily controlled. Lin Yun, Dongfang Yun, Mu Lingxian, and the others all agreed with Xiao Chen's suggestion. Even though it was very difficult to achieve, it was at least a feasible method. Moreover, with the sacred temple's wealth, it was completely possible. At most, it was a matter of time. This suggestion was quickly approved by everyone. Then, Xiao Chun and the others gave the order to start building the pagoda. The first was naturally the large cities. In these cities, the population was in the millions or even tens of millions. Such a large population was naturally the most important thing to pay attention to. Following the orders of Xiao Chun and the others, the construction of the pagoda was quickly carried out. Everything needed was provided by the temple, and the various factions were only responsible for providing manpower. Of course, there were also powerhouses from the sacred temple personally supervising every place to prevent the construction of the pagoda from failing to meet the standard. None of the major powers dared to go against the orders of the divine temple, much less reject them. At this time, Li Tian was already in charge of the construction of a spirit tower in one of the cities. As the person in charge of the formation, he was currently in charge of the largest city in the land of all living, the City of All Living. This was the largest and most populous city in the land of all living beings. There were more than 80 million people living here. And this was only the number of people in the city. In the surroundings of the City of Thousands of Lives, there were many forces and sects of various sizes. It could be said that the City of Thousands of Lives was the most prosperous place in the land of all living beings. It was also the place with the most powerhouses. Many powerhouses came and went from the City of Thousands of Lives. Not only was it the most prosperous city, but it also had the most convenient and fastest transportation. It was no exaggeration to say that as long as it was an important city in the land of all living beings, there would be a teleportation formation in the City of Thousands of Lives that could be directly connected. To the land of all living beings, the importance of the City of Thousands of Lives was self-evident. This was also the reason why Li Tian was personally overseeing it. The pagoda in the City of Thousands of Lives was the largest and most luxurious of the planned pagoda. An important area in the City of Thousands of Lives had already been planned and the construction of the pagoda had begun. Li Tian had not left this place for several days. He personally watched every part of the pagoda. As long as there was a problem, Li Tian would immediately raise it. There were hundreds of thousands of people working on the pagoda. These people were all cultivators and powerhouses from the various major factions in the area. But now they were building the pagoda. Building the pagoda is indeed a good idea. Li Tian murmured softly in his free time. Li Tian had never thought of the idea of building the pagoda. However, when he heard this idea, Li Tian's first reaction was to support it. It was indeed a very good idea. As long as this idea was implemented, the problem of the new cultivators would be completely solved. It was precisely because he knew the importance of the pagoda that Li Tian attached great importance to this matter. He took the initiative to go to the City of Thousands of Lives to supervise the construction of the pagoda. As the largest pagoda, the City of Thousands of Lives pagoda could not have any problems. Otherwise, it would be very troublesome. Time passed day by day. It had to be said that with the help of so many cultivators, the construction of the pagoda was very fast. In just 3 months, the pagoda in the City of Thousands of Lives was completed. From the outside, it looked like a very ordinary pagoda. However, the inside was completely different. To put it simply, the interior of each pagoda was a space of its own. To put it bluntly, it was a small world. The area was determined according to the size of the pagoda, but it was not small. And anyone who entered the pagoda would be tested by the pagoda through a special formation. In an instant, the corresponding bloodline could be matched and then directly transported to the ranking of their ancestors. In other words, in the pagoda, one did not have to look for the ancestral tablet that they help. The pagoda would take care of it on its own. And if there was no ancestral tablet in the pagoda, one would definitely not be able to enter the pagoda. Therefore, the bloodline became the key to entering the pagoda. This method was also the most convenient and reliable. Of course, to be able to do this, the power of a profound formation was indispensable. Every pagoda was engraved with 999 formations. These formations were the most precious part of the pagoda. At the same time, they had to be replenished every once in a while. Otherwise, the power of these formations would be exhausted and the pagoda would naturally lose its function. It was indeed a very large project, and the maintenance work in the future was very tedious. However, this was not a problem. As for the maintenance work of the pagoda, it would naturally be handled by the sacred temple in the future. Every once in a while, people from the sacred temple would go to the various pagoda in the City of Thousands of Lives to repair and replenish the resources of the formations. They had already inspected the pagoda for possible problems. The completion of the pagoda after the pagoda was the result of Xiao Qin and the others' 3 months of hard work. With the appearance of these pagoda, the remnant souls of those who had died in vain would also have a place to stay in the future. Chapter 2999. The construction of the pagoda had eased the tense atmosphere in the land of all living beings. Of course, the main reason was that Temple's purge was nearing its end. Those who had secretly colluded with the origin world had all been killed. Thus, the atmosphere in the land of all living beings was much more relaxed. Temple wasn't a bloodthirsty person. They wouldn't attack the living beings of the world for no reason. After dealing with the new cultivators, the next thing they needed to do was to stabilize the people in the land of all living beings as soon as possible. After all, being too nervous wasn't a good thing. No one knew what kind of chaos would erupt in the end if they were constantly suppressed. That wasn't what Temple wanted to see either. Therefore, after the bloody purge at the beginning, the next step was the most crucial work of pacifying the people. The most important thing for Temple to do now was to calm the nervous emotions of the people as soon as possible. After all, no one knew when the war with the origin world would break out again. Although the origin world didn't seem to have done anything recently and seemed to have admitted defeat, the origin world wouldn't admit defeat easily. However, everyone knew that the origin world wouldn't admit defeat that easily. Moreover, with the relationship between the two sides, admitting defeat wasn't enough to end the battle. Xiao Qun and the others knew this. The primogenitors naturally knew this too. Whether they admitted defeat or not, the two sides would have to fight in the end. Therefore, before the war broke out, it was necessary to ensure the stability of the land of all living beings. Li Tian and Xianyuan Ling were the most suitable people to deal with this. With their abilities, it was difficult to make progress in this matter. The only thing they needed was some time. Especially after the pagoda construction was completed, it was an opportunity for the people to sense Temple's intentions. Otherwise, why would the divine temple spend so much effort to build these spiritual towers? One had to know that the construction of each pagoda was equivalent to carving a small world. Moreover, there were many formations attached to each pagoda. Even if it was just a small pagoda, the cost was enough to make people speechless. If an ordinary faction wanted to build such a pagoda, they would probably have to empty out all their wealth. Only a large faction like Temple had the capital to promote the existence of pagoda in the land of all living beings. The situation had stabilized for the time being. Xiao Qun and the others were discussing the next attack on the origin world. Little Qing was obviously the most enthusiastic about this matter, but Xiao Qun and the others were not in a hurry to set off. Everything would have to wait until the dust had settled on the land of all life. She still needed to wait for a while. Helpless, Xiaoqing could only accept it. However, on this day, as usual, Little Qing and Xiao Chen were drinking and chatting together. Since she had nothing to do, Little Qing naturally enjoyed spending time with Xiao Chen. Although he had a good relationship with Lin Yun, Little Qing still preferred the feeling of being with Xiao Chen. After drinking a mouthful of wine, Xiao Qing casually said, "If this drags on, when will it end? Moreover, isn't this falling right into the trap of those old fellows?" Little Qing still hoped that they could attack the origin world as soon as possible and end this war once and for all. Everyone could see that the progenitors were behind what had happened in the land of all life. From the looks of it, the main purpose of these tricks was to stall for time. But what was the point of stalling for time? She really couldn't figure out why the progenitors were stalling for time. But no matter what, she couldn't let the origin world succeed. In Little Qing's opinion, she had to stop whatever the origin world wanted to do. It was such a simple principle. That was why Little Qing was so anxious to attack the origin world. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. He knew that Little Qing didn't mean it. She wasn't blaming him. There's nothing we can do about it. Even if we know it's a trick of those old fellows, we can't do anything about it. We can't abandon our home, right? The progenitor's tricks could be called an overt scheme. Even if Xiao Chun and the others knew everything, so what? In the end, he could only accept it. It was as if he had to suffer in silence. Unless Xiao Chun and the others were willing to abandon the land of all life. But was that possible? The progenitors obviously valued this point. That was why they were so confident. They were certain that Xiao Chun and the others wouldn't abandon the land of all life. That was why they were so fearless. Forget it. Let's not talk about it. By the way, what do you want to do with the origin energy you mentioned earlier? Xiao Chun had asked Little Qing if there was any origin energy. After all, the land of all life had just been built. There was no extra origin energy at the moment. If there was a place in the world with the most origin energy, it would undoubtedly be the land of creation. Xiao Chen didn't hide it when he heard Little Qing's words. He smiled and said, I want my parents to break through to the World Lord realm. Xiao Qing and Bai Rue were both progenitor realm cultivators now. This was absolutely unimaginable in the past. But now, Xiao Chen felt that it wasn't enough. Only when one reached the World Lord realm could they achieve immortality and have no lifespan limit. Although progenitor realm experts had a long lifespan, it would be exhausted sooner or later. As a son, Xiao Chen naturally didn't want that day to come. In Xiao Chen's opinion, the family naturally had to be together forever. Therefore, it was necessary to help Xiao Qing and Bai Rue break through to the World Lord realm. In addition, Xiao Chen didn't expect Xiao Qing and Bai Rue to be very strong. Therefore, even if he had to use resources, Xiao Chen wanted to push them to the World Lord realm. Sacred Temple could take out other resources, but origin energy was the only thing Sacred Temple didn't have. Little Qing didn't think much when she heard Xiao Chen's words. She directly nodded and agreed. No problem. Although I don't have much left, it's enough for 2 people to break through. There wasn't much origin energy left in the land of creation, but it was still enough. Xiao Chen smiled in response. Thank you very much. It's a small matter. If you really want to thank me, solve the land of creation as soon as possible. We can't delay the matter of the origin world any longer to avoid trouble. Little Qing glanced at Xiao Chen and said. Little Qing and Xiao Chen were getting along very easily now. There wasn't any barrier between them, so they spoke very casually. Xiao Chen smiled and said, That's right. Soon. With that said, Xiao Chen took the initiative to raise his glass and clinked it with Little Qing's. Just as the 2 of them finished drinking, an expert from Sacred Temple walked in. He bowed respectfully to Xiao Chen and Little Qing. Then, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Divine Ancestor, something happened. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 3000. Xiao Chen's expression froze after hearing what the Mighty One from the Sage Hall said. What could possibly happen in the Sage Hall? However, Xiao Chen still asked when he saw that person's solemn expression. What is it? Sacred Master, the primogenitors of the origin world have sent their soul clones to the main hall. They said they want to see you. Those old fellows are here? Xiao Chen and Little Qing exchanged glances when they heard that. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Why would the primogenitors send their soul clones to the land of living under such circumstances? Although they didn't come with their true bodies, a soul clone was already strange enough. They couldn't figure out the intentions of those old fellows, but their instincts told Xiao Chen and Xiao Qing that those old fellows definitely didn't come with good intentions. What are those old fellows trying to do now? Little Qing couldn't help but curse. She absolutely didn't believe that those old fellows would have any good intentions at this time. Alright, no matter what, let's go and take a look first. It's just a soul clone anyway. The primogenitors had sent their soul clones, so they obviously weren't here to attack the land of living. That was because the soul clones didn't possess any offensive power at all. Any cultivator could easily destroy them. Under normal circumstances, soul clones were only used by some almighties to communicate with each other. Little Qing didn't say anything after hearing Xiao Chen's word. They definitely had to go and take a look. The two of them stood up and vanished on the spot. It was as if they had never appeared. In the next instant, Xiao Chen and Little Qing appeared in the main hall. Lin Yun and the others had arrived before the two of them. Moreover, Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Qiu's soul clones were standing proudly in the main hall. Only their soul clones had appeared. The other primogenitors didn't seem to be present. Xiao Chen didn't ask about it. He just smiled faintly. "What's the occasion today? To have you two primogenitors grace us with your presence. Isn't the land of all beings honored by your presence?" His words were filled with sarcasm. Anyone could tell that he wasn't welcoming them. The Green Ancestor and the Qiu Ancestor weren't mindful at all. The Green Ancestor chuckled. "Xiao Chen, people say that a scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. You really did it." "Not at all. Compared to you, Ancestor Qing, I'm afraid I'm still far behind, especially when it comes to playing with people's hearts. This can't be considered as playing around. It's merely the choice of all living beings. This old man once said that all living beings are foolish, but none of you listened. Alright, if you have something to say, just say it. There's no need to be so secretive." He was no longer interested in chatting with Ancestor Qing and Little Qing. As for Little Qing, she didn't say a word from beginning to end. However, his expression was cold as he stared at the two soul clones. He wanted nothing more than to shatter them. However, even if he destroyed the soul doppelganger, it would not affect Qing Zhu and Qiu Zhu at all. There was no need to do so, Xiao Chen said straightforwardly. Hearing this, Qiu Zhu smiled helplessly. "Xiao Chen, we're here to make peace." Make peace? They had never thought that Qiu Zhu would say something like that. At this moment, the origin world wanted to make peace? Everyone looked at each other. Dongfang Yun took the lead and sneered. "Make peace? That's ridiculous. Have you become senile? Do we still have the possibility of making peace?" No one believed Qiu Zhu's nonsense. What peace talk? This was simply impossible. Even if Xiao Chen and the others agreed, Little Qing would not agree because Little Qing had to eliminate the primogenitors to be the true world spirit. The one who had the strongest reaction was Little Qing. Her eyes were filled with killing intent as she smiled and said, "Get lost. Scram. You don't have to embarrass yourself with such boring trick." The battle had progressed to this stage. Countless universes had been destroyed. Only 3 worlds still had living beings. Even if the battle had just begun and the battle hadn't broken out, there was absolutely no possibility of making peace. It was simply impossible. Qiu Zhu didn't seem to be surprised by Xiao Chen and Little Qing's reactions. He continued, "Xiao Chen, I think you've misunderstood. The peace I'm talking about is only with your land of all beings. It doesn't include the land of creation. You know the relationship between us and the world spirit. I also know that we must fight to the death with the world spirit. So, my meaning is very simple. I want to make peace with your land of all beings. As long as you don't interfere with the matter between us and the world spirit, I can guarantee that the origin world will absolutely not interfere with your land of all beings. Moreover, Xiao Chen, it's completely unnecessary for you to forcefully interfere. You won't gain anything. Everyone knows that the land of all beings is independent of the world spirit. Even the world spirit can't interfere with the land of all beings. So, it doesn't matter to you who the world spirit is. It won't affect you at all. As long as you nod, I can make a heavenly oath that I won't interfere with your land of all beings." Little Qing's expression turned even uglier after hearing Qiu Zhu's words. He was clearly trying to drive a wedge between them. There was no possibility of reconciliation between the progenitors and little Qing. There would be a battle in the end. However, it was different from Shao Chen and the others. Shao Chen and the others were the progenitors of all beings. Their strength didn't come from the world. Moreover, at Shao Chen and the others' level, the world didn't have any ability to restrict them. Therefore, it didn't matter to them who the world spirit was. In other words, the spirit of the world could be Shaoqing or the progenitors. It turned out that their goal was to drive a wedge between the land of all beings and the land of creation so that the origin world could focus on dealing with little Qing. Based on the current situation, little Qing definitely wasn't a match for the progenitors without the help of Shao Chen and the others. Just the world destroyer alone was enough to give little Qing a headache. Adding the progenitors to the mix, there was no way she could fight. Heh, a dog can't change its habit of eating shit. You're still trying to drive a wedge between us so that you can defeat us one by one? Don't forget that your origin world still has the world destroyer. At that time, if you destroy the land of creation, do you think the land of all beings can remain unscathed? Little Qing sneered. She seemed to be refuting Qiu Zu's words, but she was actually telling Shao Chen and the others. Don't underestimate the progenitors. What you're saying now sounds nice, but what about when the time comes? Moreover, the origin world still has the world destroyer. At that time, can you deal with the world destroyer without me? Also, once these old fellows obtain my strength, their strength will definitely skyrocket. At that time, can a mere oath restrain them? Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 3001. Little Qing seemed calm, but every word he said was a warning to Shao Chen and the others. Now that they were facing the origin world, they could only win if they worked together. Once they were divided, they could only wait to be defeated one by one. In response, Shao Chen just smiled and nodded at Little Qing. He knew what Little Qing meant and understood the logic behind it. Moreover, if Qing Zu and Qiu Zu thought they could sway them with just a few words, they were too naive. The land of living beings didn't have any irreconcilable enmity with the origin world, but Shao Chen also understood that he couldn't just watch the primogenitors kill Little Qing. Therefore, Shao Chen and the others didn't believe Qing Zu and Qiu Zu at all. Little Qing heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Shao Chen smile. In fact, he was too nervous. Qing Zu and Qiu Zu didn't seem too disappointed when they saw that Shao Chen and the others weren't swayed at all by their words. From the beginning, they knew that it was impossible to sway Shao Chen and the others with just a few words. How could it be so easy? Moreover, Shao Chen and the others weren't that naive. Shao Chen smiled faintly when his plan to sow discord between the two sides failed. If the two of you came here just to say this, then to be honest, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. Shao Chen's words made his intentions clear. Qiu Zu shook his head and Qing Zu smiled faintly. I knew it would end like this. The two of them were very calm and didn't seem disappointed at all. It was as though they didn't expect to succeed. Shao Chen and Lin Yun looked at each other when they saw their expressions. For a moment they were puzzled. Since Qing Zu and Qiu Zu didn't come here with any hope of success, then what were they doing here? Or maybe they didn't come here for this at all. What other purpose did they have? If they didn't come to sow discord between the two sides, then why? For a moment, Shao Chen was puzzled. Qing Zu smiled faintly as if he had seen through Shao Chen's thoughts. There's no need to make wild guesses. What I said just now was just a casual remark. We old fellows aren't that naive. Was it just a casual remark? Those words just now weren't the purpose of Ancestor Qing and the other two coming here? In that case, why had the two of them come to the land of all life? Suddenly, a sense of uneasiness rose in the depths of his heart. His gaze turned cold as he stared at Qing Zu and Qiu Zu. Qing Zu said calmly in the face of Shao Chen's cold stare. Actually, We do want to sow discord between you two, but it seems that the possibility of success is very low. So, we came up with another method. Sowing discord between the two of you is to allow us old folks to better deal with the land of creation. So now, at this point, Xiao Chun seemed to have guessed something. However, before he could react, he suddenly sensed something from the spiritual avatars of Qing Zhu and Qiu Zhu. Two beams of light soared into the sky and instantly enveloped the entire sacred hall. Under the envelopment of the light, the space around the sacred hall was imprisoned. Upon seeing this, Lin Yun's expression sank. Ritual array, the ritual array that appeared out of nowhere sealed the entire sacred hall. At this moment, Xiao Chen's group finally understood the purpose of Qing Zhu and the other two. They came here to cast a ritual array to seal the sacred hall and trap everyone. As for their purpose, it was most likely to attack the land of creation. As long as they trapped Xiao Chen's group, no one would go to the land of creation to rescue them. Under such circumstances, it could be said that with the power of the origin world, it wouldn't be a problem to take down the land of creation. From the beginning, the goal of the origin world wasn't the land of all life, but the land of creation. With a gentle tap of his finger, Xiao Chun shattered Qing Zhu's spiritual avatar. But shortly after, Qing Zhu's spiritual avatar coalesced again. Looking at this scene, Xiao Chun frowned slightly. As expected, this isn't a spiritual avatar, but the power of the ritual array. Previously, they thought it was Qing Zhu and Qiu Zhu's spiritual avatars. But now, it seemed that it wasn't the case at all. The Qing Zhu and Qiu Zhu in front of them were merely condensed from the power of the ritual array. The power of the ritual array was connected to their bodies. Upon seeing Qing Zhu's reappearance after being defeated, Lin Yun, Dongfang Yun, Mo He Zhu, and Mu Lingxian's expressions turned ugly. They didn't expect these old things to be so cunning. Moreover, they had never seen this ritual array before. It wasn't an ordinary ritual array. Clearly, it was another trump card of the origin world's primogenitors. Moreover, the ritual array's grade was definitely not low. It could even be said that it was the most advanced ritual array that they had ever seen. Damn it! Little Qing cursed inwardly. The purpose of using the ritual array to trap the sacred hall and prevent everyone from leaving was to attack the land of creation. In that case, these old things were probably already on their way to attack the land of creation. Without Xiao Chun and the others guarding the place, the land of creation naturally wouldn't be able to withstand the attacks of these old guys. Little Qing's figure flashed and instantly disappeared from the hall. She came to the outside world and directly attacked the ritual array. She wanted to break the ritual array with brute force. However, facing Little Qing's all-out attack, the ritual array didn't have the slightest reaction other than ripples. It was like a stone falling into the water. Other than that, there was no other change. It blocked. The ritual array blocked Little Qing's all-out attack. Seeing that, Little Qing didn't give up and continued to attack. As a spirit of heaven and earth, each of her attacks had the power to destroy heaven and earth. However, under the obstruction of the ritual array, her attacks seemed to have lost all their power. There wasn't the slightest bit of offensive power. She couldn't break it. She couldn't break it. Xiao Qing actually couldn't break this array formation. Seeing that, Qing Zhu said with a smile, "Don't waste your energy. Since we're able to set up this ritual array, it naturally won't be broken so easily. Of course, with your strength, this ritual array won't be able to trap you for too long. If you give it your all, you should be able to break it forcefully in 5 to 6 days. However, by that time, the matter of the land of creation would probably be over." Naturally, they didn't think that the ritual array could trap Xiao Chen and the others for too long. After all, at their level, no ritual array could trap Xiao Chen and the others forever. However, 5 to 6 days was enough. By then, the land of creation would be destroyed. Even if Xiao Chen and the others broke free from the ritual array, What could they do? Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 3002. 5 or 6 days seemed very short, but it was enough time to change many things, such as the destruction of the land of creation. Hearing Ancestor Qing's words, he angrily attacked. However, no matter how he attacked, Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu's bodies would reappear. His attacks were useless against them. In other words, their images were connected to the formation. As long as the formation wasn't destroyed, he couldn't cause any substantial harm to them. He's expression became increasingly gloomy as he couldn't break through the two's influence. In the end, it was Xiao Chen who spoke. "All right, there's no point in doing this." He motioned for He to calm down. This kind of attack had no effect on Qing Zhu and Qiu Zhu at all. It even seemed to be playing to the gallery. He calmed down after hearing Xiao Chen's words. Meanwhile, Xiao Chen calmed down and looked at Qing Zhu and Qiu Zhu calmly. "I'm very curious. How exactly did you guys set up the formation in the land of creation?" This was what Xiao Chen was most concerned about. After all, this was the land of creation, their territory. It was indeed somewhat inconceivable that the primogenitors had been able to set up such a formation in the sacred palace without anyone noticing. Unless there were spies from the origin realm in the sacred palace. However, that was even more impossible. If the primogenitors had planted spies in the sacred palace or bought people's hearts, then Xiao Chen and the others would be too much of a failure. They had directly let the spies attack the root of the problem. However, if no one coordinated with them, how had the primogenitors set up such a formation? It had to be known that even Doomsday wouldn't be able to enter the land of creation without anyone noticing, let alone the primogenitors. Not to mention, they had directly entered the sacred palace and set up a formation right under the noses of Xiao Chen and the others. Therefore, Xiao Chen was even more curious about how the formation had appeared. Qing Zhu didn't conceal it. He smiled and said, "Actually, the formation appeared long ago. You just didn't notice it." "Those teleportation formations?" As soon as he said that, Xiao Chen immediately thought of those teleportation formations. The teleportation formations that had been scattered all over the land of creation because of the new cultivators. Ancestor Qing nodded and said, "That's right. It's those teleportation arrays." Speaking of this, Xiao Chen suddenly understood. He smiled helplessly and shook his head. "I see." At first, Xiao Chen and the others thought that the teleportation formations were just ordinary teleportation formations, and that the primogenitors had asked them to inscribe these teleportation formations only because they were a threat to the land of all beings. When necessary, they could use these teleportation formations to directly enter the land of all beings. However, he didn't expect that this wasn't the case at all. The primogenitors had never thought of using those teleportation formations for teleportation, because they had heard of teleportation formations before. So what if they entered the land of all living beings? Destroy the land of all living beings? But what was the result? It was very likely that they would be wiped out here by Xiao Chen and the others. However, it was clear that the primogenitors had given up on fighting to the death. They were ambitious. What they wanted was to win, not to perish together with Xiao Chen. Therefore, the hundreds of teleportation formations actually had other uses. They were the foundation of the teleportation formation before them. Xiao Chen and the others had destroyed those teleportation formations, but under the cover of the teleportation formations, the foundation of the formation remained. Although they didn't know what method the primogenitors had used, this was the truth. There was no way to refute or deny it. The teleportation formations were just a smokescreen. The primogenitors' true goal was here. From the very beginning, what they wanted to destroy wasn't the land of all beings. By the time they realized everything, it was already a little too late. Xiao Chun and the others had already fallen for the primogenitor's scheme. It wasn't just Xiao Chun. Lin Yun, Xianyuan Ling, Dongfang Yun, Ancestor He, and Mo He were also speechless. They hadn't expected that they had fallen for the trap from the very beginning. The primogenitor's scheme was also closely linked and could be said to be flawless. From the moment the new martialists appeared, the primogenitors had already planned everything up to this point. From the looks of it, the entire plan could be said to be perfect. I've really learned something. It looks like you're already on your way to the land of all beings, right? Indeed. After spending so much effort, Xiao Chen also guessed where the primogenitors were now. Ancestor Qing didn't hide it from him. After all, even if Xiao Chen and the others knew, what could they do? They were already trapped by the formation. After saying that, Qing Zhu chuckled. However, I see that many of your primordial spirits aren't in the sacred hall. They aren't trapped. Why don't you let them try to rescue the land of all beings? Ancestor Qing actually encouraged Xiao Chen and the others to send people to rescue the land of all beings. The primordial spirits he mentioned were naturally Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, Li Tian, Tyrant, Daoist, and the others. Due to the construction of the pagoda, they weren't in the sacred hall. In order to trap Xiao Chen and the others, the formation wasn't large. It only trapped the sacred hall's area. However, after hearing Ancestor Qing's words, Xiao Chen smiled and shook his head. Let them go to their deaths. Ancestor Qing naturally wouldn't be so kind as to let Li Tian, Xianyuan Ling, and the others go to rescue the land of all beings while Xiao Chen and the others were trapped. That was simply impossible. It could even be said that the primogenitors couldn't wait for Xiao Chen to do that. This was because once Xianyuan Ling and Li Tian went, they definitely wouldn't be able to return. They would definitely be killed by the primogenitors. Without Xiao Chen and the others, Li Tian and the others would only be sending themselves to their death. Xiao Chen immediately saw through Ancestor Qing's thoughts. Ancestor Qing wasn't upset that Xiao Chen had exposed him. Instead, he smiled. It was obvious that such a clumsy plan wouldn't work on Xiao Chen. After saying what needed to be said, Xiao Chen stood up and said to Ancestor Qing and Qiu Zhu, "Since you know everything, the next step is to break the formation. You don't have to use the formation's power to maintain it anymore. There's nothing else to say anyway." After saying that, Xiao Chen ignored Ancestor Qing and Qiu Zhu and directly left the main hall. The influence of these two people was maintained by the formation's power, so they couldn't move at all. They also didn't have any attack power. There was no need to pay attention to them. As long as the formation was broken, the influence of these two people would naturally disappear. Following Xiao Chen's departure, Lin Yun, Dongfang Yun, and the others also disappeared from the main hall one after another. At the same time, Ancestor Qing and Qiu Zhu's influence also slowly dissipated. In the starry sky near the land of all beings, Ancestor Qing and Qiu Zhu, who were originally sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed, slowly opened their eyes. Ancestor Qing even had a smile on his face. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 3003. A smile hung at the corner of his mouth. Up until now, everything had been going according to plan. Xiao Chun and the others were indeed trapped by the Matrix at the moment. These guys are really difficult to deal with. Although that was what he said, Qing Zhu's expression was one of complete relaxation. Ancestor Qiu, who was at the side, did not respond. Instead, Ancestor Mu spoke. Not bad. Let's take down the land of creation first. Although little Qing was not in the land of creation this time, the primogenitors could not attack little Qing directly. However, if they could destroy the land of creation, it would be a big blow to Xiao Chun, little Qing, and the others. Destroying the land of creation was equivalent to destroying little Qing's foundation. By then, the primogenitors would only need to focus on the land of all living beings. Moreover, the land of creation still had Old Tree, Wood Spirit, and other ancient living beings. Without Little Qing, Shao Chen, and the others' help, the primogenitors could kill Old Tree and the others. Losing a few ancient living beings would be a huge blow to Shao Chen and the others. It would greatly weaken Shao Chen and the others' strength. The primogenitors had planned everything from the beginning. Now they were about to succeed. Even the primogenitors could not help but feel excited. On the other hand, Shao Chen and the others looked at the formation in front of them and tried several times. Even with everyone's strength, they could not break it directly. Looks like it won't be solved in a short time, Lin Yun said helplessly. The formation was probably as Ancestor Qing and Ancestor Mu said. Even Shao Chen and the others would need at least a few days to break it. However, there was no time. The land of creation would probably be destroyed in a few days. No one stopped them. Given the progenitors' power, it was too easy for them to destroy a world. Husband, what do we do now? Qin Shuru and the others asked anxiously when they saw Shao Chen and the others were helpless. Qin Shuru and the others were naturally alerted by such a big event, but there was nothing they could do to help. Even Shao Chen couldn't break the formation in a short time, let alone Qin Shuru and the others. Shao Chen said as he looked around the array formation. This array seems to be blocking sound transmissions. I'm afraid we won't be able to communicate with the outside world. That was indeed the case. Under the cover of the formation, Shao Chen and the others had no way of communicating with the outside world, so they couldn't notify anyone else. In other words, Li Tian, Xian Yuanling, and the others were probably still unaware of what had happened in the Sacred Hall. After all, under the cover of the array, the Sacred Hall looked no different from usual from the outside. Since they couldn't contact the outside world, Shao Chen and the others couldn't inform the Old Tree and the Wood Spirit to evacuate. Given the current situation, if there was a way to inform Old Tree and the others, even if the land of creation was destroyed, Old Tree and the others should be able to escape. But now, there was no way to inform them in advance. Old Tree and the others were defenseless, and they could only wait until the primogenitors arrived at the land of creation. When that time came, it wouldn't be so easy for Old Tree and the others to escape. Damn it, what do we do now? He couldn't hold back his anger and shouted angrily. Find the array base first and start destroying it from there. That's the fastest way, Little Qing replied. As a spirit of heaven and earth, Little Qing was the strongest, but she didn't have a deep understanding of array formations. Therefore, if they wanted to break the formation, they could only use the simplest method, and that was to find the array base. Any array formation needed an array base. Otherwise, it would be impossible to inscribe the array formation. Previously, Ancestor Qing had said that the array base of this great array was actually the hundreds of teleportation arrays hidden in the land of all living beings. The array base was the energy that maintained the operation of the array formation. The primogenitors were very smart. They had placed the array base outside the array formation. This way, after everyone was trapped, they couldn't destroy the array base immediately. They could only wait for the array base's energy to be completely exhausted, and the array formation would dissipate on its own. Based on the current situation, it would definitely require an enormous amount of energy to maintain the array formation that could block Shao Chen and the others. Therefore, it was obvious that they wouldn't be able to maintain it for long. But the array base is outside the array formation. We can't leave the array formation, so how are we going to destroy the array base? Ancestor He said helplessly when he heard Little Qing's words. That's right, they couldn't leave the array formation at all. How are they going to destroy the array base? Shao Chen said. If we go all out, we should be able to send one person out. However, that person's cultivation can only be at the ancestor realm at most. Shao Chen and the others' cultivations were too high. It was impossible for them to force their way out of the array formation. However, if they were to join forces, they would be able to temporarily tear a hole in the array formation. Although this hole wouldn't be enough for Shao Chun and the others to leave, it would be enough for an Ancestor Realm cultivator to leave. After this person left, they could go directly to Li Tian, Xianyuan Ling, and the others and ask them to destroy the array base outside. They didn't need to destroy all of it. As long as they could destroy some of it, the power of the array formation would definitely weaken, and Shao Chun and the others would be able to forcefully blast open the array formation. Hearing Shao Chen's words, everyone nodded in agreement. This was indeed the only way now. However, who should they send? Qin Shuru and the others were originally the best choice, but now all of them were world lords. Their cultivation was too high, so they didn't meet the requirements. In the end, after some discussion, they decided to let Shao Chen's father, Shao Qing, go. Firstly, Shao Qing's cultivation happened to be at the Ancestor Realm. Secondly, Shao Qing's identity was the most suitable. Father, go directly to Big Brother after you go out. Be careful along the way. It wasn't considered dangerous, but Shao Chun still reminded him. Hearing this, Shao Qing nodded confidently. Don't worry, I can still handle such a small matter. Alright, everyone, let's do it. There's no time to lose. With that, Shao Chun and the others attacked with all their might, and a terrifying power instantly poured on the array formation. Just as Shao Chun thought, under the joint attack of everyone, a small hole was indeed torn open in the array formation. Go quickly. Seeing this, Shao Chun said in a deep voice. The crack couldn't last for too long, and Shao Qing had to hurry out. Hearing this, Shao Qing didn't waste any time. In a flash, he rushed out of the array formation through the crack and went straight to the city where Xianyuan Ling was as previously said. After successfully sending Shao Qing out of the array formation, the next step was to wait for Xianyuan Ling and the others to destroy the array base outside. Everyone let out a breath of turbid air. Just now, everyone didn't hold back. Now that they succeeded, it was inevitable that they would collapse. Now it's up to Father. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 3004. Looking at Shao Qing's departing figure, Shao Chun smiled and shook his head. There was nothing they could do now. He could only wait for his father's progress. Shao Chun smiled and comforted Bai Ryue when he turned to look at her. Don't worry. Father will be fine. There's no danger. I know. Bai Ryue naturally knew that there was no danger. After all, this was the land of all living beings. Moreover, Shao Qing was now at the progenitor realm. Putting aside his combat strength, at least his cultivation was there. It was enough to protect his life in the land of all living beings. Shao Qing rushed out of the formation and rushed to the city where Xianyuan Ling was. It only took him a little more than 2 hours to arrive. Because he knew that time was of the essence, Shao Qing did not care about the consumption of his spirit power. Shao Qing had consumed a lot of spirit power by the time he arrived at Xianyuan Ling city. Why are you here? Seeing Shao Qing appear, Xianyuan Ling was also shocked. He immediately asked with concern as he took the initiative to help Shao Qing walk to the main hall. He wanted Shao Qing to inform him, but Shao Qing had no intention of doing so. He immediately told him about Sacred Hall. Something happened to Sacred Hall. Xianyuan Ling did not react at first. He thought, what could have happened to Sacred Hall? Moreover, Shao Qing had come in person and seemed so anxious. Soon, Xianyuan Ling learned the whole story from Shao Qing's narration. At this moment, Xianyuan Ling's expression became solemn. Sacred Hall has been trapped by the progenitors with a formation? Third brother and the others can't come out? That's right. Moreover, the origin world's goal is the land of creation. The purpose of trapping Qin, and the others is to prevent them from rescuing them. Now, you have to destroy the formation's foundation. The foundation is the teleportation formation that we found earlier. Chun-Er and the others can only escape by destroying the formation. Shao Qing said anxiously. Xianyuan Ling did not expect that the teleportation formation they found earlier was actually the foundation of this formation. From the beginning, those old things in the origin world had been deliberately setting up a formation to mislead them so that they would not discover their true goal. That made sense. Compared to the chaos in the land of living beings, it was clear that directly destroying the land of creation would be more cost-effective. Causing chaos in the land of all living beings was just chaos. However, if the land of creation was destroyed, the result would be completely different. Unable to care about crossing the line, Xianyuan Ling directly called the two maids over. "Serve my father well. I will contact the others now." He told Shao Qing to rest at ease and that he would deal with the rest. Shao Qing did not refuse. His mission had been completed. Next, it was up to Xianyuan Ling and the others. Moreover, with Xianyuan Ling's ability, he believed that he could handle this matter well. After settling Shao Qing down, Xianyuan Ling directly flew away and rushed towards the nearest teleportation array. He even contacted Li Tian along the way. Li Tian was currently in Myriad Life City. After receiving Xianyuan Ling's message, he was similarly extremely shocked. "I didn't expect that we would be tricked by the origin world. We didn't even notice it." "Alright, enough of this nonsense. The most important thing now is to get rid of those array bases as soon as possible." "Alright, I will set off now. Also, inform the others and let them work together. We will try to destroy the array in the shortest time possible." Xianyuan Ling, Li Tian and the others began to move. They already knew the location of those teleportation arrays. Even now, there were people guarding them. This saved them a lot of effort. They only needed to destroy them directly. They rushed to the nearest teleportation array. This teleportation array had actually been destroyed long ago. Xianyuan Ling did not think much about it before, but now, looking at the destroyed teleportation array, he frowned. After sizing it up carefully, Xianyuan Ling finally found a black stone in the teleportation formation. It was about the size of a fist, but the power it contained was incomparably vast. "So, it's this thing." This was the array base. Previously, he did not pay attention to it and thought that it was just an ordinary stone. However, it seemed that this thing was not simple. Without thinking much, he directly destroyed the black stone. In an instant, the array base also lost its function. "Li Tian, the black stone is the array base. Destroy it." He told Li Tian about his discovery. However, Li Tian had already discovered it. "I already knew. Tell monk and Taoist so that they won't be able to find it." The array bases were destroyed one by one. Xianyuan Ling, Li Tian and the others moved quickly without any delay. As the array bases were destroyed one after another, Shao Chen and the others in the sacred hall also felt that the power of the array was weakening bit by bit. "It seems that they have started to move," Linyan said. "Faster," Little Qing said helplessly when she heard that. There was not enough time. She did not know if the primogenitors had reached the place of creation. If the array was not broken now, it would really be too late. After all, it would take time for Shao Chen and the others to rush to the place of creation after breaking the array. Little Qing did not want to see the place of creation in ruins by the time she reached it. However, it was useless to be anxious now. She still had to wait for Xianyuan Ling and the others' progress. They had only destroyed a few array bases, so it did not affect them much. Moreover, Shao Chen and the others did not have a way to directly break the array. While Shao Chen and the others were racing against time to break the array, on the other side of the place of creation, the army of the origin world arrived without any warning. It was not a reliable army because there were not many people who came this time. There were only the primogenitors, World Devastator, Hu Huang, and the others. There were also tens of thousands of experts from the origin world. Although there were not many people, they were very strong. They could be said to be the most elite force in the origin world. As the origin world's spatial spirit ship approached, Old Tree and the others in the place of creation naturally noticed it immediately. Did you inform the world spirit? Old Tree, Wood Spirit, and the others gathered together. Old Tree asked. Old Tree naturally chose to inform Little Ching immediately when the people from the origin world arrived. However, Wood Spirit shook her head helplessly. I can't contact her. I've tried all kinds of methods, but I still can't contact her. Old Tree felt that something was wrong when he could not contact Little Ching. His heart sank. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? Little Ching just happened to be uncontactable when the origin world attacked. Old Tree did not believe that it was a coincidence. It was obvious that the origin world was behind all this. It was very likely that something had happened to Little Ching. That was why they could not contact each other. Things are getting a little troublesome. I think we can't escape this time. Please collect, vote, recommend. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.